Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Happy to have you with us. That's always the case. Tune in on YouTube. Check out our Big Willie's neon sign. In fact, you know what? It's a Friday. Take a little early exit from work. Head over to Big Willie's. Watch some Little League World Series. Watch the breakdown of preseason NFL games, the upcoming buzz on college football. Unfortunately, the injury reports coming out because teams are practicing in earnest right now in both college and NFL football. Big Willie's has craft cocktails, specials every single day. They have food specials every single day, and lunchtime is the perfect time to get over there. $14 or so, you sit down, you have a delicious and filling meal. Tell them OC sent you to 1717 South Main. All right, we've been having a lot of fun on the show with these over-under numbers. And it's Friday, so I decided we're going to do a start bench cut because Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes who joins us in half an hour, he likes a little start bench cut. He enjoys weighing in on the start bench cut. This one is maybe the most difficult one that we've put together. Utah football safeties in the Power 5, Power 4 era. There are a lot of guys who deserve their shine that played that position. Hashtag safety pride. We talk about Utah being, a running back factory in some regard, defensive line, defensive end, pass rush factory in some regard. That one was also incredibly difficult. We haven't gotten the pre-Power 5 era pass rushers in yet. D-line, obviously, a really, really tough one. We haven't done the Power 5 era of interior D linemen yet, I don't think. But safeties, I mean, you talk about the gold standard of Utah football positionally in this last decade plus, and the names you're spoiled for choice, it probably comes down to really a list of like 6 or 7 guys. I might be better served to do a free safety and strong safety start bench cut.
Yeah.
But instead, we're going to make it hard for everybody, and we're going to upset a lot of people. And we're going start bench cut Utah football safeties in the Power 4, Power 5 era.
And we talked about this right before the show together, OC. Like you said, we named at least 6 guys. There's probably 7 or 8 guys you could put. You could make an argument for, they're top 3 safety since Utah joined the Pac-12.
I mean, the numbers are good for a lot of guys. I do think that, postseason decoration, respect from the rest of the conference does matter at least a little bit in elevating above the other really good players at the position. So
certainly All-American status, if that's the case. I don't know if for the 3 we got, I don't know how many of them were All-Americans, but certainly all-conference honorees.
There were All-American, no consensus All-Americans,
okay,
but there were All-American nods.
Okay,
and that's.
So, like, meaning of the 5 or whatever, that the 5 main ones that give the All-American honors, they at least got 1.
You got 1.
Okay.
Or 2. You have to get 4 of the 5, right, to be consensus, and
okay.
5 to be
5
unanimous.
Unanimous, okay.
And unfortunately for some players, a lot of that is related to if people knew your name before the season started, because there just aren't a ton of people, especially when you're playing West Coast football. There weren't a ton of people that were like staying up late to do the research and figure out, hey, does this guy deserve my respect? Does this guy deserve for me to talk about him as one of the elite players?
One of the 150 players on a watch list doesn't count as people knowing who you are.
By the way,
OC?
we got some more junk mail today.
Hey,
I don't know if you saw that.
Speaking of watch lists, let's go.
We got another watch list appearance for a Utah football player, so that's exciting. But we had a hard time making the list for corners. You have a hard time making the list for defensive linemen. Safeties, I think, has been the most challenging list because there are guys that have sort of the external respect and decoration, and accolade, and then there are guys that if you were watching Utah football, you paid attention and saw like, whoa, this individual was really special for the University of Utah. And statistically, maybe they made even a bigger difference, or as big a difference as some of the guys that got the big-time accolades, the first-team all-conference at least, or honorable mention All-American or things like that accolades. So, man, it's hard. It's hard to even send this tweet out with a limited list. But I'm going to do it. Start, bench, cut Utah football safeties during the Power 4, Power 5 era. 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. Cole Bishop, Marcus Williams, Julian Blackman.
Yeah, that's who we settled on.
Honorable mention.
Don't add us, okay? That's who we settled on. Don't add us, Chase Hansen.
Actually, do add us. Like, that's the point. We want your interaction.
Never mind.
877-353-0700. Marquise Blair, honorable mention. Brian Blecken, honorable mention. Chase Hansen before he moved to linebacker, honorable mention at least. Sione Vaki, the list can go on.
Sione Vaki, Eric Rowe we talked about as
Eric
a guy before he was a corner.
Yes, he had 1 year as a corner. He had 3 years as safety. His best year as a corner, but he was a really good safety for the University of Utah.
Now, if we were taking into consideration NFL careers, it's he and Marcus Williams that would be the top two, right? Like if we're talking
Julian
about what
Blackman
they did in the NFL, Julian's been good too.
He's been having a hell of an NFL career so far.
Yeah, I'm sad. I'm sad that he's not on my Colts anymore. But it was fun having him on the Colts.
But I mean, Marcus Williams has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
So Cole Bishop, Marcus Williams, Julian Blackman, start, bench, cut. If you want to throw in one of the other names because you like that guy better, we enjoy that as well. 877-353-0700. And
do we have a just for the Sione Vaki fans to get really in on this? Are we going to have a best two-way player who also played safety?
No,
in the Power 4 era.
We're not doing that because it's like Sione basically is the only guy.
And people are going to be like, does special teams count as two-way?
By the way, I do like to give you some context on these players, and because you just brought up Sione Vaki in 2023?
Yeah, that was his final year.
2023, he was a first-team all-conference player. Cole Bishop was a second-team all-conference player. Sione Vaki was the first-team all-conference guy there. He had 51 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 interception. The year before that, Sione had 41 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, no interception.
He's still with the Lions, right, Sione?
And a forced fumble. I don't know if he's still on the Lions. I haven't.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up because he didn't get it that much play on obviously a really good team.
And it might factor in for you. I don't know if it does, but it might factor in for you that while he was having a great year defensively, he was also playing offense sporadically.
Maybe the best offensive player on the team.
So, and look, the NFL decided we like him better as an offensive player than a defensive player, which is something.
Also something that it seems to be the case with Travis Hunter. Anyway, sorry, we don't need to get too far afield with that, but that surprises me that they don't want to play Travis more as a primary corner and then sprinkle in some offense. Seems like the other way around.
Julian Blackman, former first-team all-conference player, 158 career tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 9 interceptions, 20 total passes defended, a couple of forced fumbles as well. Cole Bishop, 198 tackles in 3 years, 22 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 12 total passes defended. Because I threw him in as an honorable mention, I love me some Marquise Blair. 107 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 4 passes defended, 1 forced fumble.
And just like a trail of bodies that just got hit really, really hard.
Just devastation in his wake.
Also, I don't know if you can find the targeting penalties for him too. Like he racked up those targeting penalties too because he was just such a hard hitter. So fun to watch.
189 tackles for Marcus Williams, 4 tackles for loss. He did not have any sacks, but he did have 11 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles.
Those numbers are really good.
I mean, they're awesome.
11 picks, 11 career picks for a safety is quite a bit. You expect that number or around that number for corners because they're right on the player being thrown at. Safeties, man, that's impressive.
You know who had not so sneaky, but oof. So Brian Blecken, if we're being a purist here, okay, you have to take out his 2010 season, a freshman season, which was stellar. Yeah. Blecken
that
was
Mountain
phenomenal.
West year, though.
It's a Mountain West year. You also have to take out 2011, where he was primarily a linebacker.
Oh, okay.
Right? And but just in the Pac-12, let's talk about Brian Blecken as a player, just in the Pac-12 conference.
Regardless whether linebacker or safety, right?
13 tackles for loss.
Wow.
2 sacks, 5 interceptions, and 5 forced fumbles.
Wow.
That's a really good stat line.
That's getting a little bit of everything from him.
You can Cole Bishop, by the way, 22 tackles for loss.
Oh, yeah,
for a safety.
He was always in the backfield.
7.5 sacks,
yeah.
3 interceptions. I'm actually surprised he only had 1 forced fumble, but he did have 4 fumble recoveries. This was a tough one for me. 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports.
Now you could
say Twitter.
You could say Blecken's numbers. You could listen to that and be like, well, Blecken's, as far as overall. He got one of every defensive stat, at least a couple of every defense stat. You might say, well, he has better numbers than Cole Bishop, but Cole Bishop did all of those as a safety.
And
some of those for Blecken were linebacker.
And he did all those in the Pac-12 conference,
yeah.
and he did it in 3 years. And Blecken's total numbers are a 4-year total.
One of those in Mountain West, and one of those is a linebacker.
But look, he was an awesome player. I mean, and it was really more than one season he was playing linebacker. So this is just the
1+, I guess. Yeah.
So, but yeah, Blecken was a great player, and Cole Bishop gets the nod for me. Marquise Blair was phenomenal, but when you're talking about these safeties, the bar is so high that being a 2-year player is probably not quite enough. And that, I think, is also what keeps Sione Vaki out of it. Although that one stellar season, deserves at least honorable mention status. 9 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 1 interception in a single season where you also gave your team, 5 touchdowns on the offense.
I think it was 450 to 500 yards of offense, too.
520 yards from scrimmage and 5 touchdowns while also being an elite defensive player is a hell of a thing.
Which is why another reason why you think you list those defensive numbers, you list as a safety how he and Cole Bishop were able to wreak havoc in the backfield as safeties, and you wonder why the NFL hasn't seen him as more of a defensive player. By the way, did confirm he is still on the Lions roster.
Okay, cool.
He just didn't get much time last year as a rookie. Hopefully he gets more time this year because it was so fun to watch him at Utah, especially on the offensive side. I'm curious to see how it translates to the NFL.
So start, bench, cut. 877-353-0700. 6641 says start Baby Magic, bench Julian Blackmon, cut Cole Bishop. How dare you, sir?
Cutting
Cole Bishop.
22 tackles for loss. We don't want it.
What have you done? 877-353-0700. Keep your reactions coming in on the start, bench, cut. Now, I also set some over-under numbers for today that I really wanted to jump in on. So I'm asking a lot of our listeners reaction-wise. 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. I'm going to hammer you with that over and over because I set these numbers. We're going to focus on the defense next week, the defensive numbers that I think Utah hopefully can hit. I think are going to be kind of in the ballpark of what's necessary for this to be a good team, and that's been the goal for all of these over-unders that we've set. But I also put a poll question up based on the research done for the over-unders here. Who will score more rushing touchdowns for Utah football this year? This is a poll on Twitter at Real OC Sports. Go vote. Will it be Devin Dampier, your quarterback, or will it be the entire running back room combined?
That's a good poll.
And the reason I asked that question is because if you go back to New Mexico offensively last year, guess who wins?
Devin, right?
Devin scored 19 rushing touchdowns. The rest of the team scored 18 rushing touchdowns. Which, by the way, still one hell of a total. 37 rushing touchdowns, second in the Mountain West Conference, seventh nationally, tied for seventh nationally. That was a very productive offense overall and a very productive rushing offense for the University of New Mexico, with Devin Dampier being, of course, the biggest contributing factor there because he was not only piling on the yardage, but he gave you 19 rushing touchdowns. The over-under I set for Utah football rushing touchdowns in the 2025 season is 25.5 rushing touchdowns for the team.
Because it's 2025, right?
That's not why. It's the 10-year average for Utah's rushing offense.
Okay.
And, James, do you know how many rushing touchdowns Utah scored last year?
It was less. We did this exercise. It was less than Devin Dampier's by himself at New Mexico. I remember that.
Correct.
Did it get in the double digits? Was it 10?
It was 7.
7. Yeah.
Do you know where that ranked in the Big 12 Conference?
Was it last?
Dead last.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that. I'm so sorry for the team who got worse than that. If that was the case.
What a strange. Because if you would have asked without looking at the data, if you walk up to the average Utah fan on the street and you say, I know you don't want to talk about the 2024 offense, but let's talk about it. What was the strength of the offense, if there was one? And everyone would be like, oh, well, it was, at least the run game was serviceable.
Yeah, Bernard was the best player on offense. Yeah.
At least they were, decent running the ball. And then you would say, did you know that they scored 20 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns? They were dead last in the conference in rushing touchdowns. And people would be like, what?
And did you know that that the 20 passing touchdowns is good for 4th all time in the Kyle Whittingham era for single season passing touchdowns? Did you know that?
It's not quite 4th, but it's
somewhere near the,
it's
somewhere near 5th. It's 4th or 5th.
It's the top half of his seasons basically.
It's wild,
which is crazy. But I mean, you're looking at a team now that you can't even judge off of last year if you're Utah's rushing. If Utah scores single-digit rushing touchdowns this year, I don't have a show anymore. I'm not gonna know what to do. Everyone is gonna have jumped all the way off the Utah bandwagon, and people are just they're gonna be burning their interlocking U's and drum and feather apparel.
And block U's if
you go back far enough.
if you're holding on to the block U.
If you're still a loyalist to that terrible era of branding for us. Here's the thing. It can't happen again. It's not going to happen again. So even as I present it as a nightmare possibility, I wasn't willing to set a number that was anywhere near what you had last year. So 25.5 rushing touchdowns.
Last year should be a total aberration, yeah.
And, James, you're not going to be surprised. Can you guess where 25.5 would put Utah in last year's Big 12 rankings when it comes to rushing touchdowns?
Let's see. There's 16 teams in the Big 12 divided by 2. 8th.
It would actually be 7th.
Oh, okay.
But tied for 7th. So
that's wild. So I'm curious. Let's say, because we both went under for passing touchdowns the other day. And we landed on maybe 20 to 22 this year. And we said you're going to be able to – hopefully you're definitely going to be able to make up a lot for that with rushing touchdowns this year. That's something we're counting on. and obviously we're talking about that today. And then we hope to be able to make up for that the lack of touchdowns from passing in other areas with defensive scores and maybe a special team score or two, right? So I'm curious, have you looked at combined rushing and passing touchdown numbers from 2024 and who is the best in conference, who's in the middle, who's at the end?
So, yes, Houston was the worst. They had 20 total offensive touchdowns last year.
And somehow Utah lost to them. Anyway,
Arizona was 15th with 30 total touchdowns. For those keeping score, and
this is total touchdowns, so not just passing and rushing, it's all of it, right? Or is this also special teams and defensive touchdowns?
Hold on, I think it's got to be because
Utah would only be 27 with passing and rushing.
Hang on. This has got to be total touchdowns, not just offensive touchdowns. But let me make sure that I've got my numbers right.
Maybe you need a little more time to break it down to just those specific offensive touchdowns.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so Utah had 7 rushing touchdowns in 2024. All right. They had 20 passing touchdowns in 2024. That's what we decided on,
yeah,
right?
So that gives them 27 offensive touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. All right. This is slightly misleading with the way that they construct this, because when you say scoring offense, and you go into scoring offense, you're thinking offensive touchdowns. So Utah had 32 total touchdowns last year. They had 27 offensive touchdowns, 32. So you put in the defensive touchdowns, you put the Lander Barton and Rumble in for a pick six, that kind of stuff. You get to 32 touchdowns for the University of Utah. So look. Maybe that can be an over-under for next week. How many non-offensive touchdowns do we think Utah can score this year? Because last year was 5. The top touchdown scoring team in the conference, you will not be surprised, is the eventual conference champion. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
Of course, you can pile up some numbers in the non-conference and still be near the top. Anyway,
yeah.
Arizona State had 61 total touchdowns. And Texas Tech had 60, Baylor had 58, TCU had 56, Colorado had 56. And correct me if I'm wrong, Iowa State was the conference runner-up last year. They were 6th in total touchdowns.
Wow. They had a few, maybe 2 or 3 really high-scoring games. I'm not looking at their last year's results, so anyone going, how do you not see that they had this many? But they had a handful of, or a few, at least, of high-scoring games in the high 30s and the 40s. But they were not. I mean, Becht was awesome, but they were not always a prolific offense every game last year. So that doesn't surprise me a ton. Despite their really good season, it wasn't always like just running up the score on offense.
So going back to, I think, the direction we were headed here, if you take the over on the number we set for rushing touchdowns and you take the under on passing touchdowns, which a lot of people did,
including us,
which we set at 23.5, right? So you think there'll be 23 or fewer passing touchdowns. You kind of have to take the over then on rushing touchdowns if you expect Utah to be any good, because BYU had 48 total touchdowns last year, and they had a really good season. They had the same number of touchdowns as UCF, who did not have a great season.
Yeah.
So, again, the numbers are what they are. They don't fully inform, because you can score 7 touchdowns in a non-conference blowout game and then 0 in a conference game and rely only on field goals, which unfortunately Utah had to do a couple times last year. And the outcomes don't just rely on touchdowns themselves, but if you want to be above, middle of the pack in this ultimate standings, nobody really cares about statistical analysis where you fit. What they care about, what we all care about, is at the end of the year, Utah is not in the middle of the pack in the conference wins, losses, results.
What's your win-loss record? The most important stat.
So if you want to be like in the hunt at the end of the year, you probably need to score. With BYU being a little bit of an outlier here, everyone else that was in that conversation scored more than 55 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So you need to hit the over on one of these numbers. You got to hit the over. Well, it's probably on rushing. 25.5 for me feels very conservative because you take the numbers from the New Mexico offense last year. Devin himself had 19 rushing touchdowns. They scored 37 rushing touchdowns last year just in the run game at New Mexico.
So they got like 49, 50 offensive touchdowns then. That's yeah. I would say that the reason I asked that is I think it helps inform your decision today on, like you said, on rushing touchdowns. If you think this Utah offense is going to be really good and it's going to translate to at least contending for a Big 12 championship, then you think that they're going to go over in rushing touchdowns, because especially if you also chose under in passing touchdowns like we did. So if you say, I think I land on 22 passing touchdowns. If you asked me to predict a specific number, 22 passing touchdowns from Devin Dampier this year. So 25, if you go under rushing touchdowns and you say they're going to get to 24 or 25, that's 46, 47 touchdowns, which leaves you probably out of the group that contended for the conference championship last year, and a lot of people think will contend this year. So I think they got to get to at least 30 rushing touchdowns for you to feel really good that, hey, this offense is as much better as you wanted them to be compared to last year.
It gets scary when you really start to add up the numbers, because it's reasonable to think, all right, 26, 27, 28 rushing touchdowns, fairly conservative. Let's say 30. Okay, 30. Well, if you have 30 rushing touchdowns and 20 passing touchdowns, which is that's a big improvement for Devin specifically from last year. You're at 50 total touchdowns, and that means you need your defense and your special teams to give you half a dozen or more. I mean, Arizona State scored 61 touchdowns last year. We're just talking about being in the conversation for the conference championship, not actually getting there. Good text coming in from 2289. Start Bishop, bench Blackman, cut Williams. You're cutting Marcus Williams? This is ridiculous. I've typed it out 3 different times, and this is the 3rd different version. That happened to me when we did the pass rushers. I understand. The guy we shouldn't forget because of his contribution was Tevin Carter, but still probably outside the top 7 or 8. Tevin Carter was awesome. There's a lot of awesome players that don't even get mentioned when you're talking about the all-time greats to play in this era.
Another text said they think they're starting Bishop, cutting Williams as well. Same start bench cut as the other texter. They think Bishop was the closest thing to Weddle that they've ever seen since Weddle left Utah. And they also think Blackman would have gotten a lot more shine and credit if he wasn't in the same secondary as Jalen Johnson, which I think is totally fair. Second point.
I think that's fair. I also,
what do you think about that, about what he said comparing him to Weddle?
He was a little bit more of a box presence than Weddle.
They were different players, weren't they?
Weddle had better ball skills, I think was more versatile, because you could line him up at corner, and you did. He was a freshman All-American as a corner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Weddle is a more complete player, and Bishop is a guy like Weddle. You could never actually have Weddle play a whole game as a linebacker. You couldn't. He just wasn't physical enough. He's a physical enough player in college, but he wasn't physical enough to be a linebacker. You could have played Cole Bishop every game as a linebacker, and he would have been just fine. He was a thumper, man. And the same is probably true of Marquise Blair. But we digress, and we got to get to a break because the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, is joining us next. I can't wait to hear what he says about the start bench cut and some of these over-under totals on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show continues on a Friday, and we welcome in the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, who 22 days from now will be calling actual game action at the Rose Bowl when Utah opens their season in a night game against UCLA. A UCLA team, for those paying attention, who was picked to finish in the very bottom of the Big Ten Conference. Although we know what those expectations mean. Not much. Bill Riley, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you?
Hello, Sean O'Connell. I'm great.
You want to do start, bench, cut right off the top so I can give you some time to think about it?
Whatever you would like to do. I'm here for you. I broadcast at your pleasure.
I like that. Start, bench, cut, Utah safeties in the Power 4, Pac-12, Big 12 era.
Okay.
Marcus Williams, Julian Blackmon, Cole Bishop. Start, bench, cut.
No Marquise Blair.
Marquise Blair gets an honorable mention because he was a 2-year starter, basically. Sione Vaki, kind of the same thing, gets an honorable mention, even though he was a first-team all-conference player because he's more of a 2-year guy. Blecken gets an honorable mention because he had 3 years in the conference, and obviously he played linebacker also. Remarkable and productive and incredible players at this position. So even making the list was a start, bench, cut exercise in its own right. But we have settled on Marcus Williams, Julian Blackmon, Cole Bishop.
This is solely on their Utah career, correct?
Correct.
Not what they go on to do professionally.
Correct. Just what they were at Utah. And I can give you some numbers if you'd like.
Oh, I've got the numbers in my head.
Okay.
I called all these guys. I know what they did. Are we doing this now, or are we going to come back to it?
We could come back to it. That's just fine. I'm
good. Whatever you want to do.
Well, if you have your
got mine already.
If you have it already, because like when we did the pass rushers, I was all over the place. It took me an hour to decide what I was actually going to go with, and we've had several people weighing in saying I had to type out my answer like 10 times before I really settled on my 3. So if you've got it now, give it to me now.
I'm going to base this on their you're basing this on their individual efforts. These are individuals, not how the team per se did. So with that being said, I am starting Marcus Williams. I think people have forgotten because the Marcus Williams teams were those teams that were just on the cusp. They weren't quite getting over the top in the Pac-12. They were good, but they weren't great yet. But the defenses were very good. And Marcus Williams was an all Pac-12 player. First team all Pac-12 one year, I think second team all Pac-12 another year. Neither Bishop or Blackmon made first team all Pac-12. And Marcus Williams, if I'm not mistaken, with double digits in interceptions, he made a lot of really big plays. In fact, he came up with an unbelievable interception in maybe the Cal game. Anyway, Marcus Williams was spectacular on teams that were good but not great. Blackmon and Bishop both played on better teams, but Marcus Williams played on some really good defenses. He had Jared Norris, he had Johnny Paul, he had Hunter Demick, he had Nate Orchard. Maybe not Nate. But anyway, they were really good teams.
I think that
Marcus
I don't mean to interrupt you. I think he was only the second guy to make first team all conference for the University of Utah defensively, because he was the third. You had Star.
I think Starlo Tulele and I think Nate Orchard were also first team all Pac-12.
But chronologically, Marcus, I think
was
only
the third.
Yeah, I think it was Shelby first in the first year, and then.
Oh, it was.
And then Star, and then anyway. But yeah, your points are all very well made. He did not rely on the team around him to boost what he was reputationally or production wise. He was a guy that everyone thought incredibly highly of because he was a great player, period, and point blank.
Now the next two are tough. I'm going to bench Julian Blackmon. Julian was he was very versatile. He played outside, and I think he played his better football when he moved to safety. But he was kind of a poor man's Eric Weddle in that he played some corner early in his career. His better ball was he was a ball hawk, and he also came up with some big plays in BYU games. Picked off his cousin, took one back for a pick six. Julian Blackmon will be my bench, and I love Cole Bishop, but I'm going to cut him. A very versatile player, could play back, could play up, around the ball. It was a big-time tackler, didn't make as many big plays as the other two guys did, but was around the line of scrimmage, would be blitzed from time to time. So he was also part of that great chase down play on Jackson Smith and Jigba in the Rose Bowl, where I believe he fell on the fumble, I think, in the end zone after somebody knocked that ball out. So I think it was Clark Phillips knocked it out. Anyway, cutting Cole Bishop, much to my dismay, tough decisions, but starting Marcus Williams, benching Julian Blackmon, and cutting Cole Bishop.
It's if you go by the postseason decoration, that is probably the right call because, as you mentioned, Marcus Williams was a multiple-time first-team All-Conference guy. He was, and then Julian Blackmon made it the 1 year, and Cole Bishop was the second-team guy. Sione Vaki was actually a first-team All-Conference player. What was that, 2023? So, yeah, this one.
I think had he come back, he would have had a really big impact last year, but he didn't have quite the longevity those other guys did.
A tough one, but Bill Riley does it with aplomb.
Have you done yours yet? I don't know. Have you done your start bench cut, or are you saving yours for later?
I'm saving mine for later, but I will give a spoiler alert. It doesn't really deviate from what you just said for the reasons that you just said. Even though Cole Bishop is like more my kind of a guy, you know what I mean? Like 22 tackles for loss, stick your nose in there.
Yeah.
But the other two guys were just, so good. And at the job that they were asked to do, hard to find anyone who did it better. The honorable mention list is long and decorated as well, but those three are the ones who get the start bench cut here on the Sean O'Connell Show. On to more relevant and salient things for this upcoming 2025 season. I know you've been out of practice. You've been out seeing parts of practice that obviously we don't get to. And, it's nice to talk to players and it's nice to talk to coaches and hear the optimism and hear the excitement over what this offense is. So we'll start there. What are you seeing and hearing about this offense that gives people reason to think that this year is a reversal from what you saw last season?
Well, I think it's a lot of the carryover, but more dialed in from what they did in the spring, Sean. When I've been out to watch it, when I've talked to coaches afterwards, they're really pleased with where the install is, with the efficiency. I mean, clearly you're 7 practices in, you're in the dog days, so you're not perfect by any means. But, I think they're beginning to see some guys make some plays. I know Kyle Whittingham has mentioned Tobias Merriweather. He's had good practices. Dadrian Zipperer has also had some good practices. You're beginning to see some, everybody, the big concern was, who are the wide receivers? I don't think they've got their top 6 or 7 locked in quite yet. And you don't need to yet. You're still only 7 practices in, and you've got a scrimmage coming up this weekend. So I think you'd like to see it in somewhat of a live situation. But I think they're just really happy with the way things are coming along. And Wayshawn Parker's getting a lot of love, as rightfully so. But guys like Nakiri Rogers and Daniel Bray and some others are having good fall camps as well. And Kyle even said to me the other day, a position that, I don't think we're thinking is going to be nearly the emphasis that it was in the Andy Ludwig scheme. Well, I'm not so sure about that. He told me the other day after practice, a freshman named J.J. Buchanan out of Las Vegas has had, a couple of good practices and is beginning to flash just a little bit too. So I think they're just pleased that things have continued to progress. I don't think you'd say setbacks or it's gone backwards. I think it's just continued to push forward.
J.J. Buchanan, we're like keeping a tally on how many times he's mentioned. We're up to 4 now, and it's it's not because people are asking, hey, how's J.J. Buchanan doing, and forcing anyone. Like, other players are saying it. Teo Johnson mentioned him after practice yesterday. As you talked about, the coaches have been like, hey, this young guy's making some plays. And you need that for a team that has a lot of things to figure out offensively from a year ago, and you're replacing everybody offensively anyway. So I don't care how old they are, but this J.J. Buchanan guy might be someone we need to look closer at.
He's only a freshman, 6'4". He's 210, 215 pounds. He was 4-star kid out of Las Vegas's Coronado High School. But again, we've said this before. Kyle Whittingham just doesn't say guys to say guys. Usually when Kyle mentions somebody, it's because they've caught his eye or they've had more than one good practice. And then when you hear teammates start to talk about him too, that means that means there might be a little something there. Again, 7 practices in, and it's been practice, not game situations, but that's all you have to judge it by. And, these guys might be flashing a little bit.
Who's going to score more rushing touchdowns for this offense? Devin Dampier or the entire running back room combined?
It's a good question. I mean, Devin had 19 last year at New Mexico.
And the rest of the team had 18. So that's why I asked the question.
I mean, that's running for – I mean, if you get that type of production – if we're talking about 37 rushing touchdowns for Utah football this year, I think Kyle Whittingham would take that. I would be surprised if he had 19 again, just simply because of the surrounding cast. I'm not sure that his surrounding cast at New Mexico, though he did have a couple of good skill guys, a couple of good receivers, including Ryan Davis is here now, and Rogers was the backup last year. He had 5 rushing touchdowns, which I'd have to go back, but 5 rushing touchdowns might have led Utah last year. I don't know how many Mekhi Bernard had, but I know Utah didn't rush for a ton of touchdowns a year ago. Anyway, between Parker, Rogers, Green, Bray, who knows? You throw a couple of other guys in there in a short yardage situation. I would say the running backs will outgain. Is it the running backs or just everybody else with rushing touchdowns?
Well, I'm saying the running backs, the whole running back room. Yeah, there's always your fly sweep options and things like that, but your rushing attack consists of the running back room and the quarterback run game for the most part. The other stuff is fluff.
I think it'll be close, but I'll give a slight edge to the running backs between Parker, Rogers, Green, Bray. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Dampier has double-digit touchdown runs again this year, just because he's so dynamic. But I think if I had to guess now, I would say his rushing touchdowns come down just a little bit, and his passing touchdowns go up quite a bit.
I looked. Mekhi Bernard had 4 rushing touchdowns last year to lead the Utes, which –
well, that's what I'm saying. Nakiri Rogers was the number 2 running back at New Mexico a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, and he had 5 and a receiving touchdown. So I think, and we've talked about this with the offensive line Utah's got with Lomu, Togiai, Kump, Mokafisi, Fano, and they've got some good backups too. I think that, and good running backs, good running quarterback, I think the run game will be an emphasis. That's not to say that you're not going to see him throw, because they are. They're going to throw the football. But I think you're going to see running backs and quarterback getting into the end zone this year.
Bill Riley, voice of the Utes, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show for a couple more minutes. Kyle Whittingham, we always, we kind of grumble about how he plays everything so close to the vest and he's so secretive. But he told us, unsolicited at Big 12 Media Days, that we're going to see Smith Snowden and Lander Barton on offense. And again, during camp, he said, wow, Smith Snowden's having great days on offense. Lander Barton's doing some really interesting things on offense. And I'm kind of like, okay, why are we talking about this? Let it be a secret when you're talking about something like that. But what are your thoughts? And I guess maybe to some degree, what have you seen on how much usage should we expect? Is this going to be like, you used Weddle on both sides of the ball. You had Ben Moa come over and take direct snaps and do some crazy stuff back in the day. And you've seen it with lots of different guys in a Utah uniform. But then there's also like the Travis Hunter influence where it's like, you know what? Maybe these guys can actually play 100 snaps a game and it's not going to kill them. Like, where are we meeting in the middle here?
I I think we're going to be much closer to Eric Weddle and Ben Moa than we are Travis Hunter. That's just my educated guess. I think that you use these guys because they've got nice weapons. They're beginning to develop, but again, we as we learned with the Sione Vaki, when you've got guys that can help you on that side of the ball, you use those guys. And I think they really feel like in situations that both Lander Barton and Smith Snowden can help them out. But I would be very surprised if you're seeing those guys, 30, 40, 45 snaps a game on offense. Both of those guys, I mean, you can make the argument they're the best two defensive players, along with maybe Teo Johnson on the defensive side of the ball. And they're much more important to the defense than they are the offense, in my opinion. So I think you'll see those guys utilized. And I've been out there at practice. I mean, I'm not revealing anything there. I mean, Kyle said it himself. Those guys have been part of it. But to the extent that they will be against UCLA and Cal Poly and Wyoming and Texas Tech, I think that remains to be seen. But I would, like I said, if I was hedging one way or another, I think it would be more Eric Weddle, Ben Moa, Sione Vaki than Travis Hunter.
How delicate a balance are we talking about with the young defensive line, especially interior defensive line right now? Not only do you have to develop those guys in camp, but you got to give them at least a few really good reps against one of the best offensive lines in the country, what we think is going to be one of the best offensive lines in the country. And you're probably not winning a lot of those when you're Dallas Vakalahi. I hope you are, but you're probably not. And there is, I don't know, there's something there when you got to get some wins in camp in order to develop as a good player. So what kind of balance are the Utes having to strike to develop these young guys?
Well, they're having to get reps, but you know that. I mean, Luther and Lou Powell and Morgan Scally and Kyle Whittingham like to roll a lot of guys through there. It's going to probably be out today or tomorrow. I did a walk and talk yesterday for Utah Athletics with Jaron Kump. And Jaron obviously is seeing these guys. I said, how do those guys look up front? He goes, they're young, but they are talented. And he said, they're giving us good reps and good looks. So if the offensive lineman and arguably maybe the leader of that offensive line, I know everybody talks about Spencer and Caleb Lomu, but yeah, Jaron Kump's been in the program for 6 years. He's played and started at every position on the offensive line. And as you saw this morning, he was named to the Remington watch list. So if he's telling me they're getting good reps head-to-head with these defensive linemen, that bodes well. The other thing about it, too, though, Sean, is especially the interior guys, Dallas Vakalahi's a sophomore. Carson Kafusi's a freshman. Jonah Le'ea is a redshirt sophomore. They've got other guys that are rotating through there, too. The only guy that's really a veteran is Aliki Biamahi. So I think that they're giving these guys lots of looks and lots of reps just simply because they need them. They just don't have them under their belt right now. And if you can do it against one of the best offensive lines in college football in practice, I think that only helps you.
Going back to Smith Snowden, we know he's going to get some offensive reps. We know he's an excellent nickel and slot corner. Kyle Whittingham said at practice, I think it was 2 days ago now, that he's also playing a lot outside right now while they figure out what they've got opposite Scooby Davis. Is he going to be a guy that they settle in at one defensive position, or are we going to see his movement a lot, maybe matching up with what another team's strength are and stuff? Because I think he is that level of player. How are they going to use Smith on the defensive side of the ball?
Again, I think it goes back to what you were just saying. Who emerges? Which one? Do they get separation? There's really three guys. You get Scooby Davis and Smith. You know what those guys are. But the other three guys that they're rotating really hard right now are Rock Caldwell, Blake Cotton, Don Saunders, and there's some other guys, too, they're working in there. You've got to figure out, do those guys separate? Who does that for you? If not, sure. Could you play Smith outside? Yeah. Could you do it situationally? But I don't think they want to. I mean, I think they love his versatility in the slot because you can blitz him. He can match up with a back. He can match up with a tight end. He can match up with a wide receiver in the slot as well. So will they play him outside? There might be situations. Would they prefer to play him in the slot? I think so, just because he's so good in there. And I've compared him, and I don't know if I've done it with you. as a Chiefs fan, Trent McDuffie plays that slot. He was an all-pro. I'm not saying Smith Snowden is Trent McDuffie yet, but he's got the same skill set. And I remember when McDuffie was at Washington, he played mostly outside, but you see him inside a little bit too. Now he plays mostly in the slot, but can play outside. So I think they like Smith's versatility. But in a perfect world, I think you'd love one of those transfer corners, Caldwell, Cotton, Saunders, Hart, one of those guys to step up, and then you could utilize Smith in the slot.
I set the over-under on sacks allowed for this team at 9.5. As you are well aware, Devin was only sacked 4 times at New Mexico last year. This offensive line should be a lot better, but so should the pass rushes that he goes up against. If I give you a 9.5 over-under on sacks allowed, how do you think it plays out in 2025 for the Utes?
I think that's probably a good number you said it at. I'd probably just go slightly over. Maybe 10, maybe 11. Because that was such an anomaly last year. I mean, he was running for his life most of the times last year, and he became more of a running back on the outside. I think you're going to see him sit a little bit more in the pocket this year. But there's going to be an occasional sack. There's going to be, him trying to buy time and make some plays down the field. But I'd say you're probably in the ballpark. I'll say just slightly over and go 10. How's that?
Only 5 teams in the country last year gave up 10 or fewer sacks on the year. New Mexico, obviously, one of them, and your Kansas Jayhawks randomly the other. So it doesn't.
Yeah, they actually surprisingly had a good. I think they put a couple of linemen in the NFL. Now maybe he's only sacked 4 or 5 or 6 times again. Maybe that's him in conjunction with a great offensive line. But I think if you're playing the odds, you'd say just slightly over.
Our last thing before I let you go, when do you fully dial in on your Chiefs? The preseason is a formality at this point, it seems like, for them.
Yeah, I don't fully dial in until they play the Chargers in Brazil on, Friday the 5th of September. Now, I'll watch a little bit because there's, see how some of the rookies perform in some of the preseason games. The only thing I care about, though, is number 15 upright and healthy. Does he not hurt himself on the 1.5 series that he gets against the Cardinals and whomever else? I want to watch Josh Simmons at left tackle, the former BYU Cougar, Kingsley Suamatea, who's moved into right guard. He's big preseason for him, and then maybe some of the pass rushers. Oh, and Utah State's Jalen Royals with the impending suspension of Rashee Rice. I think Jalen Royals probably going to get a little run early in the year, so I want to keep an eye on him too.
Bill, always appreciate catching up with you. 22 days away. I know that you're probably even more excited than most of us are. Can't wait. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Talk to you soon.
Bill Riley, voice of the Utes. We got a double break here. We'll come back with a little NFL talk. Omar Ruiz from the NFL Network is going to swing by on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We welcome Omar Ruiz from the NFL Network. We'll check in on the league. Omar, how are you?
Hey, good. I'm just taking some time at the beach, little beach volleyball action to get my weekend started. It's been quite the grind on the inside training camp tour, and excited to get these preseason games underway.
Wow. I mean, that's a great way to get a little interlude, little beach time, little beach volleyball. I like to hear that. Everyone listening in their Salt Lake City cars right now is probably jealous of what you got going on.
Oh, man, it's all good.
Let's start with the ugly stuff that, unfortunately, is just the reality of training camp and the reality of the violent game of football. A couple injuries already that are going to have some serious implications for teams. We saw Anthony Richardson's pinky pointing the wrong way. I saw a dislocation. I saw a break. How long is Anthony Richardson's pinky going to affect the Colts?
Well, I think for the time being, it could be a long-term ramification. Not so much that it'll be a detriment to the season, but I think it certainly, when he was climbing an uphill battle anyway against Daniel Jones for that starting job, for him to miss significant amount of time in camp, I don't think it'll linger into the season that long, but it may cost him the opportunity to win the job. And ultimately, Daniel Jones learning the system, and all reports out of Indy is that Shane Steichen is comfortable with Jones and everything there. Obviously, Richardson has the most upside of maybe anybody in that draft class and amongst all the young quarterbacks out there, but still he hasn't shown it. This is another detriment to his young career and potentially another long-term effect to what we all hope would be a budding career that just hasn't come to fruition yet.
Definitely a much more serious injury to a player that just became the highest paid at his position in the NFL. It's almost like the two things, they're not related, but you can't separate one from the other. Rashawn Slater, patellar tendon tear. He's out for the year. How devastating is this for the Chargers, or can they handle it?
I think they can handle it because this is a team that, is built through the trenches, offensive and defensive line. Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman and Joe Ortiz, the connection to Baltimore and the big physical offensive and defensive line plays. I think they probably have the personnel to withstand, but that's not to understate what kind of a talent Rashawn Slater is. But they did draft Joe Alt last year. He's their right tackle. Rashawn Slater missed a lot of time because of the contract situation that you referenced in the spring in mini camp. He showed up and was a good sport, but he spent a lot of time on the side, kind of, protecting himself, ironically, from injury. And in that time, Joe Alt got a lot of reps at left tackle. And when you're a tackle that's drafted in the top 5, top 10, like Joe Alt was, then I think there is an expectation that at some point in your career, you're going to be left tackle. Now, when you pay what they did for Rashawn Slater, you don't anticipate Alt making that move, but this might be his time now. And I think if you can get somebody competent at right tackle, that they may be able to withstand ultimately for what they want to do, for all the talent they have on that Chargers roster, and the way Jim Harbaugh can coach and maximize talent on the roster. So I think it is devastating on the personal front for Rashawn Slater. Good guy, great talent, but I think ultimately the Chargers can probably handle that injury over the long term.
Which training camp is most intriguing for you right now? I mean, I know you're covering a lot and you're bouncing around, and some you get to be closer and more hands-on than others, but which training camp do you think is the most interesting in this NFL preseason?
I think what it was in the whole offseason is what's going to happen with that Pittsburgh experiment with Aaron Rodgers, and what kind of version of player we'll get. Will we get the guy who kind of looked very shaky and well past his prime for the Jets last year? At best, a very good quarterback, but certainly not the elite talent that he's been. And then you pair that with the Mike Tomlin defense that always keeps them with those winning records and on the fringe of the playoffs every year. But if they can get kind of one last hurrah from Aaron Rodgers to go with that defense, then maybe they are a legit contender for once. And I think what people in Pittsburgh, the patience that has grown thin with their lack of postseason experience or getting deep in the playoffs. This is the longest stretch since they first won a playoff game in 1972 or whatever it was, in their first Super Bowl run. This is the longest stretch that they've gone between playoff wins, which for that franchise, that organization is like forever by those standards. So to me, that's still the most fascinating training camp and kind of what happens with the Aaron Rodgers experiment pairing with Mike Tomlin.
What does your gut tell you about, what Aaron Rodgers has left in the tank? It's been a soap opera and a circus around him these last 3 seasons, and not a lot of results on the field, although you can't blame him for an injury. But what does your gut tell you about the impact he can have at this age?
The gut tells me he's going to be good. Like he's going to be good. He's going to play good football. They're going to rely on the defense, and they'll let him make plays in the fourth quarter and try to win games. And I think he will. Now, ultimately, can he surpass Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and all those horses in the AFC? Obviously, it would take a tremendous effort by the defense to catapult them above those guys, because certainly I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to win a shootout with Josh Allen. But if they can get that defense with T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, all those guys to play at an elite level, then Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to be his Hall of Fame self. But if he can be the best version of what he is at 41, I think they will be legit contenders in the AFC North.
You just mentioned Cam Hayward, which got my mind thinking. There are some holdouts and some hold-ins happening at NFL training camps with really, really intriguing players. You got, the Micah Parsons situation and McLaurin and Hendrickson. I don't think they've got a deal done for him yet. Which one of those is the most impactful and you think comes to the most interesting end?
They all in their own right are extremely interesting to me, because you have Parsons, I think, is the difference between the Cowboys having any hope at a great season. I think when you look at the Cowboys over the last 10, 15 years, or at least in this era post triplets and Super Bowl eras from the 90s, whenever you don't expect them to do anything good, they end up having a pretty good season. So I don't think anybody expects them to do anything, but certainly they won't do anything if Micah Parsons isn't there. So that's intriguing in its own right. And then for the way the Commanders turned it around so quickly with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn and that new era in Washington, to have the sort of most reliable weapon for your young quarterback to potentially derail that and all the good vibes that they got last year, that's interesting. And then Hendrickson, for all the headlines that the Cincinnati defense caused last year in a negative way, he led the league in sacks, and certainly a foundation that you're looking to turn around on that side of the ball has to start with him. And if Joe Burrow and that offense, as electrifying as they are going to have any hope for improvement going into the 25 season, you need Trey Hendrickson. So they're all fascinating to me, and just they all have different leverage points. They all have different levels of stubbornness with ownership, and they're all going to be fascinating to watch here in the next 4 weeks till the regular season begins.
I try to have an appreciation for the nuance in things like this, but also when you're getting this close to a season and you've got a guy at a premier position, and in this case we're talking about multiple individuals in multiple premier positions, that has a history of production, has stayed relatively healthy for the most part, and wants to be part of your organization. Yeah, you got to pay him, but you look around the league and other teams are able to pay and to succeed. What am I missing with these resistance points? If you're an owner and you don't want to pay Micah Parsons, there are 31 other owners who will pay him. And I think the same is true of Hendrickson, although probably, slightly different equation because of age and things like that. But what am I missing with these resistance points from the team perspective, from the ownership perspective, on proven guys with big-time production at positions you have to have in order to win games?
Yeah, well, I don't either, especially for somebody like Micah Parsons, where, he seems like a talent that's, you just give him, $500,000 more per year than what TJ Watt just got and call it a day, right? So what's Jerry Jones dragging this out? So the short answer is I don't know. The long answer is, I think it has to do with language of the contract and guaranteed money and guaranteed money versus injury and those sort of things that teams can haggle over. That seems to be the case in Cincinnati with that language. But but it always feels like these deals are inevitable, like they're going to happen. So why number one, cause all this bad juju for your organization when at the end of the day, Micah Parsons is going to be on the field for the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones knows that. Micah Parsons knows that. But you're not getting him reps in training camp. We see kind of what happened with Rashawn Slater, and we saw it with Dak Prescott last year. You just see it so much. Brandon Ayuk last year with these guys that, they don't get much action in the preseason and training camp, and then boom, they get hurt right out the gate. And so that causes me concern. Why put your organization through all that strife when it seems like there is a template in place for the deal to get done? It is a fascinating question, and it sort of leads to, I guess, the conspiracy theory that Jerry Jones just does this so his organization can be front and center with the Micah Parsons organization. And just like it was last year with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, certainly keeps them in the headlines, certainly keeps whether, I'm talking to you in Utah or I'm talking to a station in Seattle, Washington, or I'm talking to a station in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're talking about Micah Parsons all over the country, and maybe that's why Jerry Jones wants.
I guess no such thing as bad publicity. Omar Ruiz from the NFL Network is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Are my beloved San Francisco 49ers due for a comeback this year? Are you a believer that they have propped the Super Bowl window open for maybe at least another season?
Yeah, I think it just goes on Christian McCaffrey's health. I think last year all the holes that came to the forefront were exposed because Christian McCaffrey was hurt. I think he does so much for that team, so much for that offense that he can cover a lot of holes. And I think if he's healthy, they'll have a great dynamic year. Brock Purdy will once again look like an MVP. If he's not, I think they'll struggle because then you're asking that young defense. Even though Robert Saleh, I have all the faith in the world in him, you're asking a young defense that would have to mature quickly, would have to be relied upon maybe earlier than they expect. So I think if McCaffrey's healthy, then you can count the 49ers as one of those playoff teams in the NFC. If not, I think they'll struggle again.
Do you have a team, a breakout team this year? Do you have a squad that you're like, you know what, it's overdue, or the personnel moves that they made in 2025, I believe that this team is going to be part of the discussion for, maybe a conference championship at least?
Maybe not so deep in the playoffs, but I like the Cardinals. It's year 3 with Jonathan Gannon and the Monty Austin-Fort era, year 7 for Kyler Murray. If Marvin Harrison Jr. can make that leap in his second year, I think they have the horses on defense now. I think Gannon, with a bunch of no-names, was able to get them from one of the worst in football in 23 to middle of the road last year. And then I think now that they have guys like Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson and still got Budda Baker back there, I think that defense can really come together and be a top 10 defense. And I think that takes pressure off Kyler Murray. He doesn't have to, or at least he doesn't have to feel like he has to win games by himself. And finally that unit can come together. So I think that would be sort of my dark horse to contender. Now, conference championship caliber, I'm not so sure. But if I was to talk about the level of depth in the playoffs for a team, I think it would be the Rams after what they showed against the Eagles last year, the only one team that kind of went toe-to-toe with them in the second half of the year. And as long as Stafford's health is in check, then I think that defense is going to become elite. All those young first and second year pass rushers that we've been talking about the last couple of years are now going to start hitting their prime and be even hungrier, thirstier, and be even better in 25. So I think that's an elite team that could probably go deep that we're not talking about right now.
Are you a buyer or seller on the Detroit Lions?
At this point, I'm a seller because these early injuries on defense is kind of replicating the 24 season, and you don't have Aaron Glenn, and you don't have Ben Johnson. I think that's a lot to look past. It kind of reminds me of the 23 Eagles when they lost Shane Steichen, they lost Jonathan Gannon, and they jumped out the gate 10-1, but then they collapsed down the stretch and bowed out in the first round against I think it was Tampa that year, and so I think similarly I'd be a seller on that team.
What about the Raiders? Pete Carroll is always fun. I saw you spend a lot of time down there already. It's a tough division, obviously, because I think the Chargers are going to be good. The Broncos. I think every team in that division has a chance to be good, including the Raiders. Even if they improve, the record might not that much. What do you expect from Las Vegas.
Yeah, a similar assessment in that I think they'll be much better. They'll be much more a serious team than they've been in years past, at least in recent history. But ultimately, I don't know how much they've closed the gap on anybody. I think Denver and the Chargers have gotten better. I don't Kansas City, even if they've taken a step back, they're taking a step back from a Super Bowl 3 years in a row. So I don't know where the Raiders close that gap. And you're also kind of on a hope and a prayer. There were so many veterans that they've brought in to kind of hope that they get one last push from them, like guys like a Jamal Adams or a Philip Dorsett or some of these guys who are getting up there in years or well past their primes. You're kind of hoping they get one last shot in the arm. And so you're kind of asking a lot in that department. But I think people have the team ready to play. They'll kind of have to win ugly if they're going to win. But when you have, the quarterback play like you do in that division, and I think Gino's capable of kind of matching that play and kind of playing at a high level. But it just seems like there's too many questions at this point for the Raiders in a division that is so tough.
As you bounce around and you see different training camps and you see different coaching styles and methodologies, is the NFL a copycat league still? Is everyone kind of doing it the same way, or are there outliers that you've seen personally maybe where like, oh, wow, they practice in a lot more physical nature than everyone else does, or the opposite? These guys are in helmets all the time, but it seems like it's working for them. Like, how is it when you compare camp versus camp, practice versus practice?
Well, it's a mix of both. I think you have, copycat leagues certainly where everybody wasn't playing their starters in preseason, and then the offense looked like crap the first month of the year, and so now people are playing their starters a little more in the preseason than they used to a few years ago. But then you have a camp like Andy Reid, who is tried and true. They're going to be physical. They're going to hit in camp. They're going to play their starters in preseason, and Andy Reid doesn't care what the trends are. That's how he's going to do it. So it just kind of depends on what camp you go to, but very much, you see the trends across the league, and then you go to some old school places where it is what it is, and they're going to get after it. They're going to have spirited practices, kind of regardless what maybe the data or the new waves might be. But that's what makes the NFL interesting, because it is no one way to do it. Sean McVay obviously different than Bill Belichick, different than Jim Harbaugh, but they're all kind of fascinating to watch, and have different styles of success.
We talk a lot more college football here in Salt Lake City than we do NFL football, for probably obvious reasons, because, we don't have an NFL team. But one of the things that I bring up every year, and it drives me nuts every single year, the access that fans have and the media has to NFL practices, where ostensibly it's harder to win, it's a higher level, everyone is great, concepts are more complicated, secrets should be better kept, etc. You can watch basically whatever you want of an NFL camp, and college coaches have it locked down so you don't get to see anything. How has the NFL come to that decision and been like, you know what? There's going to be spying. Sometimes it'll work. Sometimes it won't. We're just going to have everything be accessible. And in college, it's the opposite. I don't know if that's really relevant to the NFL version of the question, but I guess why does the NFL decide that they're willing to let people watch their practices?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the fan interest, number one, I think at that part of training camp, the implementation of the plays is pretty vanilla. For the first couple weeks that the fans have access to, because, we're getting to that point now that we're in the preseason games where they'll shut off the access to the fans and they'll start putting in more game plan type of things. And then obviously during the regular season, there is no access to anything. It is sort of tight like that. So I think kind of once they're working on fundamentals, they're working on basic game plans or, basic tenets of the playbook, that's when they're open. And then as they curtail it into, strategy and more specifics and deeper in the playbook, that's when they shut it down. So I think the NFL camps know, okay, when the fans are here, we're just going to work on, the basics of special teams, fundamentals. And because that's when they're evaluating at that point, and so they kind of want to evaluate the players on the vanilla. And because I think a lot of the times they have confidence that players will eventually learn the playbook but who can just execute at a high level, period, when you're not asking them to do much. In other words, evaluating the physicals once they get the pads on for the first time, and then again, once it gets kind of more serious, that's when they shut it off.
Well, as you know, college football now is professional football, especially for guys who are NFL level players. In these last several years, your college experience is a paid experience. You have endorsement deals. You're probably driving a really nice car. You probably have a really nice – I mean, a lot of these guys now are entering the NFL draft already as millionaires, some of them multimillionaires. How, if at all, has that changed the NFL rookie experience, the NFL camp experience, and how has the NFL adjusted to it, if they've had to?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That hasn't been a topic of conversation. I know coaches have mentioned it, that, so-and-so's got, money, so to speak. But, I mean, they make pretty good coin in the NFL anyway, you know what I mean? So they just have more of it coming into it. But I don't think it's, you still got to earn your keep in the NFL. And if you're not good enough, you're not going to play. If you're not good enough, you're not going to make a team. Doesn't matter how much money you made in college. So I don't think it really has too much of effect on anything practical in the NFL. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I also, I ask because I wonder if guys, I imagine you'd be drinking through a fire hose 5-10 years ago. Not only are you having to learn an NFL playbook and you're playing at a higher level of competition, but you've got money for the first time. You've got, people in your life that are asking you for help and things like that. And now that's already happened. So maybe the adjustment, if anything, would be easier because you've already been a pro for 3 or 4 years. But I don't know I'll ask some NFL coaches about it if I get a chance.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. How it was 10 years ago versus now. Maybe more polish or money is not as big a thing to worry about than maybe it used to be. But yeah, it doesn't seem to, it's sort of business as usual, in the NFL world, if that makes sense.
Well, that is one thing I really appreciate about every level of football is that even though business and, NFL contracts have gotten much bigger and, we as fans, we have more access to the business side of things than we've ever had, more knowledge about guaranteed money and things like that. And in college, it changed things very, very drastically. And we wring our hands about it, and we've worried about it for so long, and maybe not as much at the NFL level. But then you get to playing football, and it's like, you know what? All this business discussion gets to go away because they're just playing football. That guy makes $50 million. That guy makes the league minimum. They're playing football, and that's what we actually like to watch. I love that when we get to this time of year, that's what the discussion turns to.
Exactly, yeah. That's the thing people always tell, I talk about because, obviously I cover it year round. I say in the off season I work, the business of football, that's work. When we get to the season and we're talking just ball on the field, then I'm just having fun all day because, I'd be doing that as a fan if I didn't have this job. So we're getting past that point where the work of the off season is done. Now we're about to have a whole lot of fun.
Well, keep living the dream, Omar. Appreciate your time with us on the show today, and we'll chat again soon.
All right, buddy. Have a great rest of the camp season, and, we'll talk soon.
That's Omar Ruiz, NFL Network, NFL Insider. He's been at Cowboys camp, Raiders camp, Chiefs, Niners. He's been all over the place. Does a great job for the NFL Network, and appreciate him jumping on the show. Reminder that Live Night Events presents the 2025 Granary Live Concert Series powered by Nightingale College and Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer. Outdoor concerts in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City's Granary District. Find more details at ESPN700sports.com. We've got some Camp Kyle sound for you. Teo Johnson spoke with the media yesterday after practice. It's short, but it's great.
You were there with me. I thought that was the best. We only had the two players in the scrums. I thought he was the best of the two. We also talked to John O'Hall. Good stuff from him too. But I really enjoyed Teo.
I'm telling Johnu that you said that.
Don't tell him. He could. That guy. I don't need that guy. I don't need him on his bad side.
Yeah.
Look at that guy.
He's a thumper these days.
He is.
They put some weight on him.
He is. But Teo, man, he's such a good soundbite. Really good interview. if somehow he decides to come back another year, that might need to be our NIL conversation. I'm not sure it will be though.
Yeah, Teo's great. I don't think we're going to have that opportunity if he has the year I think he's going to have. I mean, he's one of those guys. He was making appearances, not as many as Spencer Fano and company, but like remember the ESPN top 5 at the position type list or whatever. Teo got a little bit of love. And anyway, we've got Teo Johnson Sound as part of our Big 12 at noon coverage, brought to you by Mountain Land Supply. MountainLandSupply.com. Go visit them today. Teo Johnson Sound in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I just saw this on my television here in the Broadway studios of ESPN 792.1 FM. Utah versus Nevada in the Little League World Series at 3 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Mountain, 5 o'clock Eastern today.
Championship game for the region? I think so.
Little League Baseball Regionals, Utah versus our hated rivals, Nevada.
So I watched, this will be the second time they've played in this year's regionals. It's a double elimination. I don't know who won, but it was a wild start to the game. 8 runs for Utah, and they're from Alpine, by the way. Shout out to Alpine. 8 runs from Utah in the first inning, and then they go up 11-3 after 2 innings, and then the Vegas team, I think they're actually from Henderson. The Henderson team gets it to within 11-10, and that's anyway. I fell asleep. I wasn't able to finish.
That's the end of the story.
That's
James?
the end of the story. I don't know who won, but it was a wild, crazy start. 21 runs through 3 innings, and it's been notoriously hard to find these scores online. By the way,
Nevada defeated Utah in the Mountain Region Championship game of the Little League World Series with a score of 10-0. No, that's not
last.
right.
That must be last.
That's not right, dude.
Not this Alpine team. They don't get blanked 10-0, 10-run ruled.
We've got the official airing of grievances coming up in just under 1 hour.
Yeah. Website stuff.
AI overview, Google. Spoiler alert. Again, you're going to get called out. Anyway,
yeah, so it doesn't matter who won because it's elimination game or maybe championship game today, so whoever lost gets a second chance. But yeah, it's a Alpine team versus a Henderson team. Heated rivals. Interesting. One more thing on this. Interesting thing. It's been the Santa Clara Little League down in St. George, which I played on. Not this all-star team, but I played in the Santa Clara Little League. That's been the ones that make it to the regionals this year. Alpine upset the apple cart that way, so shout out to Alpine for making it this far, representing Utah.
Yeah, you warm weather kids have an advantage in baseball.
It's true
because you can play all year long.
Yeah,
in Alpine, you could only play 1 month of the year in Alpine.
It's like golf. The schools down there do really well in golf versus the schools up here, compared to the schools up here too, because you can play golf a lot. Year-round down there.
Okay, this is an update from 2 days ago, James.
Okay.
So I think this is
accurate. You might have found it.
Nevada came back with a 7-run inning.
Oh, my gosh.
And won 22-12 against
Holy
Utah.
cow. So it was 11-3 Utah, and then this 21-12 was the final score. I'm kind of glad I didn't see the ending of the game. I saw the most exciting parts.
That'd really get you.
Yeah. So this is a rematch for Utah. Let's
All
go
right.
Alpine. Come on.
Let's get revenge. Do we have a hated rival state? Is Idaho is like Utah light. Colorado is like everyone thinks cool Utah, but we're actually cooler. So I think Colorado.
For you, it's Colorado. We've established that.
Right? I think Colorado is the state that we're just boo.
I feel like Arizona and Nevada at different times have a claim to that too. It's one of those three. It's definitely not Idaho or Wyoming. They wish that it was that way, but we honestly don't care.
We're gonna do a poll next week. Which state do we hate most?
And those who are answering, we want to know if you had a Little League rivalry, and that's informing your answer. We want to know if you had a high school rivalry. Maybe you played interstate games every year against a team. We want to know what's informing your answer. You
probably have no reason to hate. It's probably completely unfounded, other than you just don't like your perception of the external perception.
Yeah.
It's probably the case.
See, for those that may or may not hate Nevada, I have a love for Nevada because that's where my grandma lives, where my mom grew up in Mesquite. A lot of my family lived at one point in Vegas. A couple of them still live there. So I have a love for Southern Nevada, Clark County, but I don't know. Maybe I have nothing to say about Northern Nevada. Never really been farther north of Mesquite.
Can I tell you something? You're not missing a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean Tahoe's up there. I'd love to go to Tahoe one time.
Tahoe is very, very, very beautiful.
I think I can skip Reno.
Reno is not great. Elko is. You're like, why is there even a city here? I legitimately have no idea why this even exists. Anyway, we promised you Teo Johnson sound, so we're going to give it to you.
Enough rivalry talk.
Enough talking about Little League World Series rivalries. Oh, 4872 says California. Utahns hate California. Yeah.
That's true. Except for all the amount of Dodgers fans that are out there. Like, what's up with you guys?
Well,
Padres.
I actually like plenty of things that are
Chargers.
from California.
There's so many of I hate the California teams, except for I like these awesome teams from California. I mean, San Diego's not. Anyway.
In any case, Teo Johnson from practice yesterday. Just a couple of minutes, but take a listen.
Yeah, what's so different about this year as opposed to last year?
Well, one, we got a healthy quarterback right now, a great one too, a competitor at the helm. You know, he's doing a great job commanding the offense, and practices have been so competitive this year. You know, it's back and forth. It's a happy, sad feeling. You know, losing some battles, but you know, it's good to see that they're their squad too.
How much more comfortable do you feel at that free safety spot going into year two?
It's crazy. I feel a crazy level up in just, you know, the speed of the game and just being able to recognize pre-snap things and moving around the field a lot more faster and more confident. For sure.
How's your chemistry developing with Rabbit Evans and the guys around you?
Man, I mean, like seriously, this whole defense, especially the starting ones, we're all so tight. You know, we all are best friends. We've been best friends the past 3 years. Everybody's pretty much been here, so we're all so tight. And Rob's my dog. Literally, that's my dog. We spend so much time on and off the field together, just trying to get better, trying to be the best safety duo in the nation.
How have you seen Rabbit grow as he enters his second year in this program?
And he's grown. He comes in, he's got, the complete skill set. He can guard, he can hit, he can tackle, do everything, Just like all of us, kind of just developing as a, smart football player and creating great habits. And, that's what he's done. He's just been growing every day as a football player and getting better and better.
After last season, how critical does this year feel for the program as a whole?
Man, I feel like it feels critical, especially for, myself. A lot of older guys on the team. 2 back-to-back seasons like that's not who we are. That's not where we want to start Utah football, in that trainer direction. So we're going to get this thing turned around, and we'll take the burden. We'll take all the pressure on us.
You said you don't like to lose to the offense, but what are you seeing from them that's giving you hope that your team can be good this year?
Man, creativity, it's just so we're a sound defense. We practice a lot. We play man to a lot of stuff. We've seen a lot of good looks, and even they trip us up sometimes, They're really creative. They give us different looks, and they got athletes. Good quarterback at the helm. They got probably the best athlete touching the ball every play. So, it's good.
I'm curious what your thoughts are about Nate Tillman as he was with you guys in the spring, but how has he maybe grown as you guys got into this
that's my little brother, and he's going to be legit. And, when you talk about the next safeties that come out of Utah that's going to be able to do everything, play around the box, in the post, guard, any receiver, tight end, that's him. He's already showing glimpses right now. He's going to be very legit, for sure.
She mentioned Tillman. Talk to us a little about Benny as well, because it looks like you guys are doing what you can to get him reps on the field regardless of safety or wherever.
Yeah, Benny is a literal just what it looks like to come to Utah and develop. When he came here, he didn't really know how to backpedal anything, and now he's a starter. He's a one. He's smooth. He's athletic. He's smart. We watch film every day. Benny is an addict. He's addicted to getting better. Every day he's working with Scally, with one of us, asking one of us to watch film. And so, I have all the trust and confidence.
Who's the hardest guy to guard right now?
The hardest guy to guard right now? They're all good. I'm gonna give my shout out to little JJ Buchanan, little freshman. He's been making some plays on me, so I gotta respect it. I'm gonna get his ass back.
Teo Johnson, he's gonna get him back. I asked him, hey, hardest guy to guard, and he said the freshman, JJ Buchanan. That is one of the 4 shout-outs that we have tallied.
Bill gave us the latest one, an hour ago, a little over an hour ago. Check out the podcast if you missed that interview. You heard Teo do it, and then I think we heard Witt do it, and then there was one other player on the offensive side. It might have been Creed Whittemore. Anyway, he's getting a lot of shout-outs here. It's one of those things where it's like, doesn't mean he's going to be a huge part of the offense. What it does mean is that he's a name to jot down as one that, hey, one of the newcomers, look for him to get some playing time this year at the very least.
And by the way, he was a big get he was a 4-star recruit. He's one of those guys that you didn't talk about a whole ton, but he's an important player in the pipeline for the University of Utah.
Speaking of Nevada, Vegas guy.
Is the production accelerated, and will we see him actually being a part of this offense as a true freshman? Who knows?
Yeah, and for those that are like who haven't heard much about him, this is a tight end, maybe a flex slot receiver guy, because he's 6'4", right, over 200 pounds.
He's not quite beefy enough to be a traditional tight end right now. He's like they have him listed at 210. He's probably closer to like 215 right now, but
yeah. So maybe
his frame is big. He'll end up being 230 plus.
Yeah.
He'll be, but right now he's not. So I think they're gonna use him as like a little baby version of Brant Keithy, which is an unfair comparison to make for a freshman. But.
And maybe this year you don't see him in many blocking situations yet because he's a little smaller than you want a tight end to be. But you will see him in out there running some routes probably based on the amount of guys that shouting him out. I would expect him to get some time this year, if not make an impact as a freshman.
You know what's a better part, a more important part of that soundbite is he was asked about Jackson Benny, who's being asked to play safety/corner this year, and he's a guy that you heard Teo Johnson say he's an addict. He's addicted to getting better. That is music to every coach's ears. That is every Utah football fan should be rejoicing over the idea that you've got a guy on the team in Jackson Benny, and if you've got one, you probably got 10 that are doing the extra work. Even in fall camp, and fall camp isn't as grueling or time-consuming as it used to be, but it still is not exactly a cakewalk. And for a guy to be like, you know what, I'm going to do extra. I'm going to find extra time. I'm going to do extra film study. I'm going to go ask Morgan Scalley for extra work. That is really, really encouraging for a guy that, I mean, the front side, the first part of that soundbite, he was like, he's a classic case of Utah football development. When he got here, he didn't even really know how to backpedal. You don't love hearing that.
That was amazing.
If you're Jackson Benny, you're like, what are you talking about, dude? I could backpedal.
The SIDs are like, hold on, we don't need people thinking he can't backpedal. Well, he can now at least.
But he was making some plays in spring football, and the recognition that, like, hey, the work that you've put in is now potentially going to pay off. He's mostly a special teams guy last year, but he made some good plays on special teams. That's the natural progression. So I love hearing that about Jackson Benny. Teo also said that Rabbit Evans is developing quite nicely. I think he's going to be a really good player for this Utah football team. But that was one thing that really jumped out. Jackson Benny is starting to get talked about a little bit. His coaches and his teammates are recognizing the work that he's putting in, the improvements that he's putting in, and something to glean. When we don't get to watch, you do have to trust your sources, so to speak.
And he had some really good moments in the spring. I did not catch much of the spring game, OC, so you'll have to tell me if he stood out very much in the spring game, but he certainly did in one of the scrimmages that us media were allowed to view at Rice-Eccles Stadium. I did go to that game. So Jackson Benny was a guy who really stood out, at least in that one, and he was a guy that was talked about a lot in the spring. It's encouraging to hear that his peers anyway are saying that he's still doing really well now that we're in Camp Kyle fall camp.
All right, got to take a break. Plenty left to talk about. Also, Sammy Moore is going to swing by at 1 o'clock to talk about Camp Kyle. And, not all of us talk to the same people. Not all of us have the same sources, whatever. So very curious to see what Sammy's been able to glean from the limited access we get to fall camp so far. That's coming up in about 12 minutes. Our Camp Kyle sponsors are S&S Roofing, Jerry Seiner Cadillac, America First Credit Union, Mountland Power Equipment, your Toyota dealer, Utah Toyota dealer, Steel Vault, Ketos Brewing, Culligan Water, Game Day Men's Health, Outlaw Distillery, Big Willie's, of course, Budweiser, Big O Tires, Baskin Robbins, and The Advocates. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Oh, a little baseball. 5 minutes of baseball here for you on the Sean O'Connell Show. So people know about this Paul Skeens guy, right?
He's burst onto the scene, I think. By the way, I forgot to remind you again. I just remembered myself. We do have to do a PGA Tour leaderboard update, but we can do it after a little baseball talk.
Okay.
We got time to do both.
I'll be quick here.
Yeah.
Paul Skeens, it's over, bud. Okay? Your run at glory, you stink now. Pirates ace Paul Skeens, who is also a social media star because he's a former LSU pitcher. His significant other, his girlfriend, happens to be like the gold standard of NIL. Livy Dunn, who is a former LSU gymnast and obviously has become a big-time celebrity on social media.
Some sports fans might be shocked to hear she is way more famous than he is. Objectively.
If you use
among sports fans, Paul Skeens probably is, but I mean, she's an athlete herself, allegedly.
Not allegedly, she's a Division I gymnast.
Yeah, she barely competed
for LSU, James.
I don't know. Anyway, we'll set that aside. She's the Taylor Swift in this.
By James's logic, if you're a backup player at BYU or Utah, you're not really a football player.
I mean, what don't they have like 10 gymnasts that compete each meet though? Like, and she doesn't even get on the floor.
Wow, I did not expect this to take a turn.
She's much more of a model than an athlete.
Well, now she's not an athlete at all. She's a model. In any case, so a lot of people look at this Skeens guy, and he's an ace pitcher, and they're just like, "Wow, you got a really good life going on." Nope, because for the first time in his career, he gave up more than 6 hits in a game. The glory, it's done. It's over.
Oh, done.
7 hits he gave up against the Reds.
Career high hits. Yeah, he was terrible last night.
Oh, except guess what? They still didn't score a run against him.
Okay.
So even in his worst night, he pitched a shutout. Obviously, his teammates helped him out, getting some runs across the plate.
Yeah, which is a rare thing for him, too, these days. The Pirates' offense doesn't necessarily help the guy out, hence his losing record.
46 starts to begin his career, and he had never had more than he never given up more than 6 hits. His ERA is under 2.
Yeah.
The guy can play.
His ERA under 2, but losing record because the offense doesn't help him out a ton. Except for last night, they picked him up. Good for them.
Man.
Terrible. Look at that losing record, and he gives up 7 hits. What a terrible pitcher.
Yeah, sorry, bud.
The run's over.
He has the lowest ERA in the majors, the second lowest.
Second best athlete in the couple.
He's probably the best athlete in the couple. But they are both athletes.
Not after last night, OC.
Yeah, now, you know what? They probably broke up, but he just hasn't made it publicly. This probably got him dumped. Oh, 7 hits? You gave up 7 hits? It's over.
My boyfriend doesn't give up 7 hits.
It was 0 runs. I gave up 0 runs. Doesn't matter.
Stop making excuses.
It's not earned run average that I care about. It's earned hit average. Anyway, just crazy that, sometimes you see these streaks being built up, and then even when they're broken, it kind of doesn't matter. Paul Skeens gave up 7 hits. Sorry, bud. You're not as impressive as you used to be. Time now for a PGA Tour leaderboard update from the FedEx St. Jude Championship. That's the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs for those keeping score. This update brought to you by Uinta Golf. Do not miss out on the Bushnell Tour V6 Shift Laser Rangefinder. Now it's $70 off. And the Tour V6 now is $50 off at Uinta Golf. So if you want the V6 Shift, $70 off. The V6, $50 off. Rangefinders from Bushnell at Uinta Golf.
Tommy Fleetwood is your leader, OC, at the St. Jude Championship. 13 under. Akshay Bhatia and Colin Morikawa are tied for second at 9 under. Justin Rose is among the group that's tied for fourth at 8 under, just 5 shots off the lead there. Scotty Scheffler, number 1 player in the world, in the next group, tied for 7th at 7 under. And then rounding out the top 10 are guys like Ben Griffin, Ludwig Oberg, J.J. Spawn at 6 under, tied for 9th. Check out our guy Tony Finau here. Tied for 24th, respectable, at 3 under for the tournament. He's 2 under for the day, though. He's got one more hole to go. So he's definitely in that range to move on to the next round, or to make the weekend, and then if he keeps it up this weekend, move on to the next leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. That's your PGA Tour leaderboard update, brought to you by Uinta Golf.
All right, we'll take a quick one here. We'll come back with Sammy Mora from Ute Zone. What has she found out up at Utah football practices? Who has she talked to that we haven't? We'll delve into the secrets of Sammy Mora's Ute coverage next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. Welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday of the Sean O'Connell Show. We do our airing of grievances in 28 minutes. Get them ready. Text them to us at 877-353-0700. Tweet at me with your grievances at RealOC Sports. For now, we'll give Sammy an opportunity to air any grievances she has at the end of the conversation. Sammy Mora, Ute Zone, joins us, Utah football and athletics insider. Sammy, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great today, OC. How are you?
Doing awesome. It's not – when I came in this morning, it wasn't quite as hot as normal, so I hope it's still that way when I leave the office today. But, we've seen you up at fall camp, and some of us are getting the same sound bites, and then, of course, there's other conversations happening. What has been, I guess, maybe the most significant or even surprising thing that you've heard, because we don't get to see a lot, but that you've heard at fall camp so far?
I think for me, the biggest thing has just been how many athletes, coaches, whoever have brought up freshman JJ Buchanan. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that stood out to me so far. JJ was was the highest rated recruit in Utah's class for 2025, and with that 6'4", 208, that's a big frame, and he's very, very sound technically as a pass catcher. And so I think hearing comments from Teo yesterday and comments from many, many, many different players on both sides of the ball as JJ is someone who's being like stepping out and like showing out so early in camp. I think that has been a big benefit, I want to say. I don't know. Benefit's probably not the right word, but it's been a big surprise, I want to say. Actually, is how I'll rephrase it. I think that's the biggest thing that stood out so far.
I think that JJ is one of these guys that by the time his career at Utah football is done, we'll have maybe talked about him playing like 3 or 4 different positions, because at 208 pounds, he's not going to be a traditional tight end, right? But I think that, if they keep him on the offensive side of the ball, he'll be a bit of a hybrid, a bit of a Brant Keithy type, where maybe he throws a couple passes, grabs a couple runs. He also could play on the defensive side of the ball. He was like, you cover recruiting more than I do, so you're very well aware of what he was able to do on that side of the ball also. But it's encouraging to hear that he's already making progress. I'm getting overly excited now about what his whole career looks like.
Yeah, I mean, he played offense, defense, like basically everywhere. He was a kick returner even. Like he had last season, I had 60 sacks, 3 TFLs, 2 sacks, a fumble recovery, 2 PBUs, and then he had over 1,000 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns on top of it. So, that's like, the fact that he was able to get that many stats on both sides of the ball, I think that's encouraging. I know that there was a lot of questions about where he would start out first when he joined this program. We had heard it would be wide receiver. We had heard tight end. We had heard somewhere on the defense. It could have been a safety. It could have been a linebacker. It just kind of depends. But, Freddie Whittingham seems to have won the battle as to where JJ is going to play. But, it's his film. If you haven't gone and watched his high school film, I encourage people to. I've watched a lot of film, and his is one of the more fun high school film reels you can see. Just explosive. Freddie Whittingham said he can jump out of a gym, which, that's for someone of his size, that's really exciting to think about. He still has like that elite speed. I think someone said he's running a 4.4 or in that area. So JJ's one of those guys that I think is going to have an impact on this team this year. I don't know where it's going to be, but, hearing his name come up so much so early in camp, I think is a great sign, especially since he wasn't here in spring. He stayed in high school and he played his final high school basketball season. So, for him to not be here this entire time, but he's still getting the coach's attention is massive.
Sammy, I'm curious how you are setting your expectations for offensive numbers. We'll start with the offense. We'll get to defense. But because you're bringing in a whole new offense, you've got a coordinator and a quarterback who know each other very, very well. And I think because of that, you can kind of extrapolate what you saw at New Mexico from those two guys and apply some of those numbers to what we can expect at Utah. But also it's not direct apples to apples. Better defenses, better athletes on the opposing defenses. Also, presumably better talent around Devin Dampier and at the disposal of Jason Beck. So when you're looking at, how to set numbers or how to set expectations, how much are you looking at what they did in New Mexico versus the personnel that they have at Utah versus what we've seen from Utah offenses in the past, and knowing that Kyle Whittingham does have some level of influence just from a whole team perspective? How do you put it together?
I think it's really interesting. Like, I mean, Devin had the 2,700 passing yards and 1,100 rushing yards last year. I don't think he's going to have 1,100 rushing yards this season. And I think the reason for that is a lot of Devin's runs last year were scrambles. That offensive line in New Mexico was not that great. And so, I think you're going to see a dip in that. I think he's still going to get his on his scrambles and stuff like that, and there's going to be some design quarterback runs. But don't be shocked if Devin Dampier doesn't have less than 1,000. He has less than 1,000 yards rushing this season, just because this offensive line is, if it's as advertised, that means he's hopefully not going to be flushed out of the pocket as fast, which is going to lead to less of those scrambles. Whereas the passing side of it, that's anyone's guess. That is anyone's guess because, like, Jason Beck said during his media availability right before camp started that when he started at New Mexico, he thought they were going to have 5 to 7 wide receivers who were going to be big time producers for them. But then as the season went on, they started being very inconsistent, and the running backs that they had started producing a lot more. And so the offense kind of shifted into this more run-first style offense. And he said I think he said 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end is what he had that in the pass game. So I think it's going to be one of those things that, it could develop. Like what we see week 1, 2, and 3 could be completely different than what you see in the back half of the season. It just kind of depends on what personnel are performing and in Beck's circle of trust, because he's talked at length about the circle of trust and putting the guys out there that he can trust. But also at the same time, he wants to put the 11 best players out on the field. So week 1, that could be, very run heavy. But then by week 9, that could be, the wide receivers are popping off. So you're seeing more of a pass game. So it's so hard because we haven't seen this offense and because there is a lot more weapons for Devin to choose from this year. I think personally, than he had at New Mexico. At New Mexico, he had probably, 3 receivers, a tight end that had some good moments, and then he had a couple of running backs. But there's a lot more, there's more in the tight end room here at Utah. There's more in the wide receiver room here at Utah. You can even make an argument that there's more at the running back room here at Utah. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And I just think it's going to be ever evolving, I think, is a way that you can look at it as you get through this season.
All of us are very optimistic about what the offensive line at Utah is going to look like this year. We've talked ad nauseum about the tackles. Jaron Kump got the news that he's on the Remington Award watch list for the preseason. As you're aware, he has started at least one game at every position on this offensive line. And now you've got the most senior guy, the most experienced guy, playing center, where, of course, he's going to help set protections. He's going to help read defenses. He's going to be quarterbacking at least that small portion, that 5-man unit along the offensive line. And look, we could talk about the tackles too if you want to, but this interior offensive line and Jaron Kump specifically, how big an asset do you think that group is for this Utah football offense, given everything else that's new?
Well, I think that, from top to bottom, stability on the offensive line is going to do nothing but benefit, I think, this offense. All 5 of them have had to learn this new offense as well, but at least it's all 5 of them are learning the offense at the same time, but you're also not worried about plugging in a new guy at center or a new guy at left tackle or whatever, or pick whichever position you fancy. There's that chemistry that's already established with all 5 of them, and I think that's going to pay dividends in and of itself because they all know how to work with each other, and they've spent all this time since Devin got on campus working on getting chemistry with Devin as well. So I think that from top to bottom, the offensive line is going to be really important for this team, and it all starts with them. I think we've seen that last year. Everyone said that Utah's offensive line wasn't that great, but if you try blocking 2 to 3 extra bodies in the box because the opposing defense knows that all you are capable of is running the ball. So I think that I have the least concerns with the offensive line from top to bottom. The interior guys, I think, by far are probably one of the more unsung groups on this offensive line. Caleb and Spencer are getting their praise, rightfully so, but Tanoa Togiai is one of PFF's highest-graded guards coming into this season. Jaron has had some very good moments, but, Jim Harding said he needs him to work on, being more confident with what he's saying and how he's calling out the coverages and stuff like that. And so that's going to be a big thing for Jaron this year. And then you add in Michael Mokafisi, who didn't practice at all in spring and is now, trying to get back up to speed with this offense and this offensive line. So I think But Moko has had some really good moments. I think go back to his freshman year, and there were a couple of massive blocks he had in key moments for this Utah team. And I think that, the injury hurt him last year. He was playing really well until he got hurt, and then the wheels just fell off very quickly. But this offensive line, this is the one thing that doesn't keep me up at night is the Utah offensive line.
You did mention something when we were talking about that offensive line about, if you have to try to block a loaded box because your passing offense can't scare a defense, it creates a problem. That's the question every year, it seems, with Utah. Like, what's the throw game going to look like? And you came into spring ball, started getting some optimism because of reports out of spring ball that, Zach Williams was suddenly making a name for himself, and then he gone. And so now it's like, oh, all right, who is it in fall camp that's going to emerge? And everything we've been told sounds like positive stuff, but how much are we buying? How much are we selling the idea that Utah's actually going to have a productive passing game, given that is not Devin Dampier's strength, and that the personnel in the wide receiver room specifically, even if they do have some good tight end options and some hybrid player style options, there's nobody that jumps off the piece of paper, at least not yet. Where do you stand on the passing attack and the weapons in it specifically?
See, I actually think there is someone that pops off the paper for me in terms of wide receiver production, and that's going to be Tobias Merriweather. He was a highly rated guy coming out of high school, ended up at Notre Dame. He was there for 2 years, and then he ended up at Cal last year, and injuries have just really derailed his time, his career, his college career. But I think Tobias is a big dude, 6'5". I think he's nearly 200 pounds. Very, very dynamic. He's a very dynamic wide receiver. Again, another one of those films that if you have the chance to go watch it, is Tobias Merriweather. And I think he has the opportunity and the possibility to be, that X factor in the wide receiver game. I've heard good things about him so far from people who, get to see things. And I've also heard good things about Creed Whittemore. Like, Creed is also another one of those guys, SEC transfer, fast, very fast. Like, he can turn on the jets and get it going. I've heard good things about him this fall. So I think that there will be a passing game. I do think it'll be, if you look at like a split, it'll be either 50-50 or it'll be 60-40 in terms of, 60% running, 40% passing. But again, it depends on whoever Utah's playing, because, there might be those teams that are still like, oh, well, Utah's only going to run the ball because of Devin Dampier and his ability, plus Wayshawn Parker and Nakari Rogers and Bryce Duke. So they're going to, maybe stack those boxes, which is going to lead to some more open coverages down the field, which, let Devin throw a couple bombs and then, humble some of these defenses. So I think I'm a little more optimistic about the Utah passing game than others are, but yeah. That's where I think there are some playmakers in this wide receiver room.
Sammy Moore from Utah is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about Utah fall camp and the information we've been able to glean from it so far. I do appreciate that optimism. The lack of returning production scares me all the time, but there's plenty of instances, even in Utah football history, where a guy that didn't have a great, first 2 years or a great first year as a breakout year. That's something that you're going to need in this passing game for the University of Utah in order to balance out the offense. Now let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. I don't have any special new novel questions that you haven't already been asked before, but like this is a defense where the linebacking core seems like it's pretty solid. We like the safeties. They've got to figure out one side of the cornerbacks room. But where do you stand on that? It sounds like it's Scooby Davis, and we know Smith Snowden's pretty established as the slot or nickel, although he might have to play on the edge as well. There's a rotation going on right now, and Kyle Whittingham specifically mentioned everyone's playing at a high level, but no one's really separated themselves. He mentioned also the possibility of being a cornerback room by committee, which is wild. What do you think happens in that defensive backfield?
Well, I think the cornerback by committee room, I think to a certain extent Utah played that last year. So you had Scooby and you had Cam Calhoun that kind of rotated in and out. So it has happened. was it effective at times last year? No, but it has happened. But I think, I've been really bullish on Blake Cotton ever since spring. The UC Davis transfer. I think, from a skill set and just from, again, this is based on like conversations that we've had with coaches at media availabilities and just like the little bits we got to watch during spring. I think Blake has what it takes to finally pull himself away from the rest of the room. Sharif Shah described him as a sponge. And I think that, for someone who was a transfer, getting him to be a sponge as quickly as he is, like as they needed him to be actually, that's good. I think that proves that, he wants to work, he wants to get out on the field. He only has 1 year left to play. And so getting him to be able to get into the field as soon as possible, I think that'll bode well. I'll say all of us at UZone, because I know Dan Sorensen, our publisher, has also been bullish on Cotton, but I think Cotton is the one that I think will be the day one starter.
The defensive tackle position at the University of Utah has been like it's a death taxes and Utah D tackles, and I really love Eliki Vimahi. I think that people are not talking about him enough. What we saw from Dallas Vakalahi as a true freshman last year, if the team had been better, we would have given it credit for how special it was to be 18 years old and getting, competing with dudes that are 22, 23, that, at one of the most physically demanding positions. But, there is a question mark around the interior defensive line because of the relative lack of experience compared to what we see so many other years at the University of Utah. Who do you think are going to be the primary rotating tackles?
So I think the four that Utah is probably going to go with is going to be Eliki Vimahi, Dallas Vakalai, Jonah Lea'ea, and then true freshman Carson Kafusi. I just think Carson is he's insanely good. He's 6'5", making him one of the biggest guys on this defensive line if you factor in the defensive ends. And, enrolled early, graduated high school early, came to Utah, and I think that he has the skill set and the talent to make that rotation. It's about consistency, especially with these young guys. You got like 4 or 5 of them that are all vying for spots. I don't think Utah's going to go more than 6 deep, but, if they do, I wouldn't be shocked to see, maybe, Pupu Sepuluna, the 4-star from Hawaii, get up in that mix. Mike Tattioli got awarded a scholarship after spring. Could see him in the mix. There's a lot of youth and there's a lot of inexperience, but again, I think it's like death taxes in Utah's defensive tackle room. I think that even if they are young, they always seem to rise to the occasion. And I think that, like you mentioned, Dallas, he was only a few months removed from returning home from a mission, and then he's starting football games and playing at a high level, 4 or 5 months after he got home. And I think that, that you're starting to see that trend of kids that are these true freshmen that, are going to be able to fight their way into rotations, especially at a position like defensive tackle for Utah. So I get the concerns and I get the hesitation around the defensive tackle room, but at the same time, there are plenty of high-level guys in that room. It is just about getting them to be consistent. With youth, that is the biggest thing that I think these coaches need to worry about. None of them were underweight. All of them came in at a good weight, so there's not that added layer of, okay, well, they're not going to be able to play until they get up to weight. So I think it's just consistency and then letting them, the cream will rise to the top. I think that's the best way to put it with these freshman defensive tackles.
In the past, we have seen when there's an embarrassment of riches, there's a certain amount of talent in one defensive position room. It'll sometimes dictate defensive packages that they'll put on the field when they're particularly deep with pass rush or with defensive tackles. That they might throw something crazy, a 5-man front, 6-man front is not outside of the question, at least in certain situations. The linebacker room, I feel like, base defense for Utah in a lot of these games, because of modern college football, you're running a 4-2-5 effectively. And you've got Jonnu Hall and Levani Damuni and Lander Barton, and then a bunch of really talented young guys as well that probably deserve to be on the field. Do we see Morgan Scalley do anything crazy in order to get the best players on the field, regardless of position?
might see some three-backer packages. You saw it a couple of times last season, so it's just going to be a situational thing. I think Morgan, we all know that Morgan loves like exotic blitzes, stunts, like things that you wouldn't expect to come from certain personnel groups. So I wouldn't be shocked, to have a three-backer personnel out there at some point. If it's a run-heavy team, maybe go that route. Even if you see someone go 12 or 13 personnel. I mean, John O'Hall talked about how if he gets to line up against across from Leonard Barton during practice, he said, Lander ain't going to catch nothing on me. I think that shows how confident in Jono is in himself as a coverage man, especially against tight ends. So that's an added bonus with that. Lander's has had good moments in coverage as well. So it's not like with these backers, they're one-trick ponies. Like, they all are good at many, many, many different things. And so, I say never with the Morgan Scally defense because, that man comes up with some of the most intriguing personnel packages that I've ever seen. And 9 times out of 10, they're pretty dang successful.
What game on what game on the schedule scares you most?
Oh God, that's a loaded one. I think there's the 3 that I have, come back to, or actually, I'll go with the ones that I continuously come back to is Texas Tech, Arizona State, and Kansas State. And I have said this for the last 6 months. I originally, in my schedule prediction, I have those 3 being losses for Utah. And I think that, on paper, Texas Tech looks like an insanely talented team. The thing is are they going to be able to mesh with the number of transfer players that they have in such a short period of time? That's my thing with Tech. With Arizona State, they have so many key pieces from last year's team coming back, but Scadaboo also was such a massive part of that team. So they brought in the transfer running back from Army, whose name slips me currently. They brought him in. Is he going to be able to fill that Scadaboo role, or was Scadaboo just like this insanely unique player that they don't have someone to replace? And then Kansas State is just one of those teams that's just been consistently good. So I don't, getting them at home, it depends on how the season's going. If Utah's firing on all cylinders, I think that all 3 of those games are very winnable for Utah. But those have been the 3 that I have consistently came back to. And they all are home games this year, but I think that you get 3 of those, the toughest teams in the conference at home this season.
It's gonna be interesting. I mean, I don't disagree with your logic. Those are all very tough games. It's great to have them at home. If they all end up being losses, even if the rest are wins, it's gonna feel worse than it actually is for Utah football, because if you lose half of your home games, people are gonna be like, "Oh, what happened to us this year?" Even if those are the best teams. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I've been told, why are you predicting Utah to just lose at home? And I said, I honest to God just was looking at the schedule. I wasn't even taking into consideration at the time home versus away. I was looking at rosters and I was looking at personnel packages and stuff like that. And so, looking back on it now, it does seem kind of stupid for me to have Utah losing all 3 home games, but that's just how this schedule fell this year. I think it's just that Utah was one of the toughest schedules in the Big 12 according to CBS Sports. So they didn't do Utah any favors this year.
Sammy, appreciate your time and all your hard work over at Ute Zone. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, OC.
Sammy Mora, Ute Zone. Oh wait, I should have asked her if she had any grievances she wanted to air. That's grievance against me for not allowing Sammy to air a grievance. Sorry, Sammy. Feel free to call back in.
I will say she agreed with me on the alleged athlete status of Olivia Dunn.
Then you're both wrong. It's messed up. Both Sammy Mora and James Peterson think that if you're a scholarship athlete, doesn't matter, you have to be an everyday starter or you're not even an athlete. And that's not just for like high school. I'm talking about you have to be a Power 5 Division I starter to have real athlete status.
See,
wow.
I did admit off air, and I'm leaning into the shtick a little bit more on here, but I will say that I did admit off air. It was
lean into it, James. Then lean into it and just ride with it, okay?
It was a little harsh to say to suggest she wasn't really an athlete, but her college career was not that impressive.
Correct.
I'll just say that.
Compared to Simone Biles.
Compared to almost everyone in Division
Simone
One
Biles didn't even have a college
gymnastics.
career, so that doesn't count.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So hers was better than Simone Biles.
She actually had a better.
She has one more national championship than Simone Biles.
Counterpoint. She had a better college gymnastics career than one of the all-time greats, perhaps the all-time great, Simone Biles. So, James, where do you say now?
So did, I don't know, however many thousands of Division I gymnasts, because, as you mentioned, Simone did not compete in college. I always do that. I'm used to saying play or game, and gymnastics you gotta change the terminology a little bit.
You don't play gymnastics.
You compete in it, and it's a meet, not a game. It's an event, whatever.
All right, we got to take a break, or else we won't have time to air grievances. 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. Air your grievances now. Head into your weekend unburdened. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. That's right. Time to air your grievances, 877-353-0700. Text them, and we will read them. Tweet at me at RealOC Sports, and I will shout them out here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. James has a grievance or two. I have a grievance or two. You have plenty of grievances. Bring them to us now, and unburden yourselves before the weekend. James, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I will also say, since I am not doing double duty this week, hosting and producing, we're opening up the phone lines
You
too.
can call.
Unlike last week, call us if you want people to hear your grievance, hear you deliver your grievance. 877-353-0700. Otherwise, like OC said, at Real OC Sports on Twitter, same number, 877-353-0700 if you want to text us. Yeah, I'll start out. So the Colts are my favorite NFL team. And I am just – it has been way too long since I've had a quarterback that's worth anything.
Uh-huh.
And I recognize that I'm super spoiled. Peyton Manning, then Andrew Luck before he decided to retire early and get injured a bunch before that. But I'm already tired of Anthony Richardson. I'm tired of the Anthony Richardson experience. Now I'm open to the possibility of, hey, once he gets healthy,
doesn't sound like you're open to,
and he learns to play the position a little bit more at the NFL level, he could end up being a really good player. But right now, I'm tired of it, OC. I'm tired of when he does play, he's not very good, and when and then he inevitably gets injured, and now I got to be excited about Daniel Jones. Are you kidding me? I'm tired of it. Get me a competent quarterback in Indianapolis, please. Like, does it really take that much? I guess it does.
I have to
dislocated pinky, OC. Sorry, I'm done.
So James has grievances against people who are non-starters in college athletics and people who get injured in violent sports. All right, well, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Well, let's see how it works out.
Well, and I also mentioned and are not very good when they are healthy.
How about 75-16? This is incredible. This week, I'm going to follow up on a grievance I aired a while ago about Tesla drivers. Well, guess what? I bought a Tesla.
Oh, man.
Since I aired a grievance about the pretentiousness and incompetence of Tesla drivers, I will make it my life's work to be humble Tesla driver of the people. If you happen to see a Tesla on the road that follows all traffic laws, that is probably me. Also, please don't vandalize my car. Thanks.
I can't believe this full circle moment or 180 moment for our guy.
This is incredible. Went from complaining about all Tesla drivers, just blanket statement, if you have a Tesla, I have a grievance against you, to now being part of the Tesla driver club. If you can't beat them, join them, I suppose. 75-16, that is a great moment in airing of grievances history. That, Sarah Todd, we're way up there.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna save that one. I told you I figured out how to save some of these texts. I'm gonna add this to my saved page here. Yeah, so good, that one, and then we have to mention the guy who said it's not your blinker's not a light to use to celebrate the fact that you just cut me off.
Also great. 4611 says, grievance, I fly often for work, and it feels like every single flight starts with the same announcement. This is a completely full flight. We need some passengers to check their bags because there's not enough overhead storage. Really? In 2025, no one wants to check their carry-on, especially with connections. So naturally, passengers sprint down the aisle and stash their bags in the first overhead bin they see, several rows ahead of their seat, leaving the rest of us playing an in-flight game of find the bin. I will echo this grievance. I will add to it, in fact, that oftentimes this is very much a preference thing for your gate agent and your flight attendants, okay? There's plenty of flights where they're just like, hey, we're running out of bin space in there. Please check your bags. Hey, everybody. This is a full flight. We're going to need people to check their bags. And then you get on the plane, and there's like 37 spaces for bags. And you're just like, why? I checked my So I won't do it ever now. There's no way. You will have to kick me off the flight before you get me to check my carry-on bag.
What if they do? What if there's that classic cartoon moment where, what if this happens in real life where you're all sitting in the same area and everyone moves out of the way and you're the only one in the middle and you're like, yeah, that looks like he's volunteered to check his bag. You're still not going to check your bag.
I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing it. And you know what? Also, don't be the discourteous passenger who's like, well, it doesn't matter that this isn't my seat. I'm going to throw my bag up there. Unless you're like one of the last ones on the plane. If you know that you're the final 10 people on the plane, just find a spot, okay? But they've done a pretty good job of engineering these airplanes these days, all right? There's a lot of bin space. I travel all the time, as most of you know, for the PFL. I never check a bag, ever. I have a great garment bag that, the suit folds into properly. It's the size of a regular, like, rollaboard carry-on. And then I have my backpack. James, on larger planes, you can put the bag in and you can put the backpack on top of it, so you're taking one spot in the bin. All of you should plan and pack accordingly, okay? You're welcome for that idea. Your purse, your duffel bag, your backpack should fit on top of your rollerboard in the bin on like a normal size plane. So, okay? I'm going with 4611 here. Don't mess up the travel experience.
Are we going to get to was it Cole's grievance that Brown Bear and I accidentally skipped last week?
Yeah, you could read it.
I have a problem with home and homes, not with the actual games. I think they're pretty freaking awesome. My problem is with the name. Why aren't they called away and aways? I think that sounds way better. Honestly, it's just a complete miss. Oh, and BYU and Jorts. He's always got to mention those two things.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, can't wait till summer's over just so I can stop seeing them.
So you can stop seeing Jorts.
And he hates school, which I think is probably evidence to the fact that he tunes in every day.
Yeah, Cole,
in the middle of a school
Cole,
day.
guess what? We knew you hated school because you listened to the whole show while you're supposed to be in school, dog.
Allegedly, anyway.
We love you. We love the fact that you listen. You're not learning anything school-wise, so you better bank on a career in sports talk radio moving forward.
Hey, that's why he's listening, I'm sure.
I like that.
This is what he's doing. All
right. 2801. I hate BYU and how they think winning the last two games mean they are big brother. I think they forgot the last 10 years. Worst part is I live in Utah County. Go Utes. Can't wait to watch them cry this year. All right. Just good old-fashioned rivalry tweet.
Yeah, love that.
Rivalry grievance.
Love that. We welcome all rivalry grievance, even if there's a BYU fan, we know that we've got a handful of BYU listeners as well. There's a guy who calls himself the resident BYU fan who texts in a lot. Shout out to him. If you've got a rivalry tweet from the other direction, we might ignore it, but maybe we'll read it if you want to text that in.
Grievance. With school getting ready to start again, there's no reason in this universe or any other that students go back prior to Labor Day and are still in school after Memorial Day. Cut a couple of days, they get off and tack them on to the beginning and end. You're welcome for the incredibly simple solution to a ridiculously foolhardy problem. I'm telling you, summer used to be longer when we were kids. School break was longer. And you got snow days. So I don't know what's going on. The public education system, the schedule, it's all wild. I just don't know. 4909 says, I hate snake oil salesmen. So that's a grievance.
I've never bought snake oil. Have you bought snake oil?
Are you talking about literal snake oil salesman? Like somebody coming around in an old schooner wagon, just like, hey, let me sell you this snake oil. And he goes, your fever, consumption, unwanted pimples, like
even a nice even makes for a nice shoe polish.
4909. Give me some context.
Let's
here.
get a what?
Let's get a story behind why you hate snake.
What do you consider to be the snake oil that you're mad about here?
And unfortunately, you can admit that you got duped by something because
Yes,
all of us have.
I've been duped.
We've
You've
all
been duped.
taken advantage of.
This guy's been duped. Maybe he just got duped. Maybe that's why they wanted to text that in.
All right, I have to air a grievance with something specific that I saw in the Little League World Series. I'm not going to air a grievance with the Little League World Series itself. Whatever, it's fine. It's fun. If you like it, you like it. If you're like me and you're like, you could take it or leave it, that's also fine. I do air a grievance with this specific thing we saw. Okay? This was during a show earlier in the week. I'm watching, and I've been eagerly waiting to air this grievance. Okay? We as a human species have become excessively reliant on technology, right? We're probably all addicted to our phones on some level, some of us worse than others. It's a point of shame and misfortune for many. I'm watching Little League World Series play. I think this was on Tuesday maybe. And I noticed that the catcher, who's on screen very frequently, obviously, the catcher kept, instead of looking to the dugout or looking to like a base coach, the catcher kept looking at his own wrist. He had a smartwatch on. And the coach was holding his phone in the dugout and was texting to the catcher's smartwatch the pitch he wanted called. You might be out there thinking, oh my gosh, that's great. It's ingenious. It eliminates the possibility that someone is stealing their signs. Well, that just doubles my grievance. If you're in the Little League World Series and you're stealing signs, grievance against you. It's still Little League. I know it's high-level Little League, but don't take it so seriously that you're cheating in the Little League World Series. And the grievance primarily focuses on the fact that, like, you're 60 feet away from the kid, and you're texting to his watch? Stop it.
They don't have pitch comm in Little League. OC. They gotta do something.
Do like a coded language, or like everyone's been doing for the 180-year history of baseball. Just make some cool little. The hat's the indicator, right?
Yeah.
Nose, chin, ear, other ear, beard,
head, shoulders, knees, and
head,
toes.
shoulders, knees. That wasn't the indicator. Just teach the kid. Hey, Tommy,
look at your baseball knowledge coming out, talking indicators on signs.
Tommy, I played catcher until freshman year of high school. It's a great position. That kid specifically is not going to know how to live without technology. What do I do here, coach? Hold on, I'll text it to your smartwatch. Stop it!
One thing I'll say is that are there no rules against that for in Little League?
Apparently not.
High level high level Little League, like they have lots of rules. I would think that there would be a rule against that.
I bet it's one of those things that is so absurd they haven't had to create a rule against it until now.
And they probably will now.
And nobody else is doing it. It was just that one team from like Parkersburg, New York, or wherever it was. And now people are just, oh crap, we got to make a rule. We got to make a rule against that because I don't know, seems silly. Stop it. You are making like that kid. This kid is doing what kids are supposed to be doing. He's outside. He's playing baseball. He's away from technology. He doesn't need the Apple Watch on. And you're like, no, put it on. I want to text you all game long.
At least it's an Apple Watch, and he doesn't actually pull out his smartphone to check it.
That would be
even worse.
Just like reaches into his glove, pulls out the phone. Oh, yep. Sorry, coach.
Sorry, coach. Fastball.
Anyway,
I have another grievance. I had someone text me this. They didn't text the text line. They actually texted me. My grievance is that the self-checkout machines in grocery stores are too sensitive. Like, no, there is not an unexpected item in the bagging area. I just breathed the wrong way, and now it is yelling at me. Yeah, I get annoyed at the self checkout too. Like I set the bag in the place you wanted me to set it.
Didn't give you what they were supposed to?
Also, one of the most recent grievance is a grievance against me complaining about the Colts when they happen to be 18 miles outside of Indianapolis, and on their way to pick up their kid from camp. Go Utes! All right, cool. You're in Indy, and you also know that the Colts suck. I don't know why you're complaining about me complaining about the Colts having a bad quarterback and really wanting them to change that. Come on.
All right, keep your grievances coming in at Real OC Sports, and of course 877-353-0700. We'll wrap up the show next.
Oh, I should read this one. Actually, should we wait to read this one when Spence is here?
I was going to leave that out.
Or should we leave it out?
I was not going to.
I mean, sometimes when you see grievance against so-and-so, it's a personal thing that we absolutely would not say because we're not about getting personal here. But this one is kind of funny about how he is a little snobbish with his music takes.
All takes.
Maybe we should tell him that someone has a grievance against music.
Are we gonna spend the next 10 minutes as like some sort of grievance intervention with Spence Checketts?
I don't know.
That seems like a bad idea.
Maybe we
James.
should not. Maybe we should not. We'll just say you're the person who texts that in. Your grievance is acknowledged. How about that?
Well, and Spence will pull up the text line and read these as soon as he gets here. The Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All-time lows coming to the Union Event Center on October 16th. We've got 2 tickets for you. If you could answer this question, 877-353-0700. Utah football had how many rushing touchdowns in 2024 as a team? If you want to get spicy and tell us where that ranked in the Big 12, bonus points. James Peterson bonus points, 877-353-0700. All right. Spence Checketts and the driver coming up next. Spence, I love this because you just read this text, 1624, then followed up just now and said, please have Spence react to what I said. I'd love to hear his response. So the grievance is this. Spence Checketts, why do you feel the need to put down everyone's music taste that is not the same as yours? I don't like rap or country, and you don't see me crapping all over people who like it. You could not like them. That's your opinion. But if a person does not like them, does that mean that doesn't mean you have a poor music choice? It's a difference in opinion.
You ever seen the movie Wedding Singer? Adam Sandler, Wedding Singer?
Yeah. And
I quote, because I have the microphone and you will listen to every damn word I have to say. and that's all it is. This gentleman must be Olympic.
Don't assume.
Well, I'm okay, fair. I've read the 4 agreements. My assumption, even though I shouldn't, is that he's a Limp Bizkit fan. And this week we had an interesting conversation about the fact that I'm now 20 years in this business, and we give away a lot of things on the station and on the show. And historically speaking, I've given away a lot of things on my show here and other stations. And for the first time in the history of my radio career, we had a Limp Bizkit ticket giveaway. And the texter answered the question correctly. And Porter reached out to say, congratulations, you have won the Limp Bizkit tickets. And the dude texts back, no thanks, I'm good. We gave them away, and he texted back and said, you can keep them. So the only thing I can come up with, Sean, is this gentleman, this texter, I'm sure is a lovely fella. I'm not knocking on him personally, don't know him. He has to be a Limp Bizkit fan because that's the band that you and I discussed this week that I said I'm just how can you really be a fan of Limp Bizkit is the question. And again, the tickets we gave away for Limp Bizkit were like last year. Fred Durst has got to be like 60. It's one thing if we're talking about prime Fred Durst, but old Fred Durst, I'm not sure that you can really be into that. So my guess is this gentleman likes Limp Bizkit, and he was upset that I was knocking on Limp Bizkit.
Two albums on the number 1 on the Billboard music charts in 1999 and 2000. So you're wrong here, pal.
Popular does not equal good, okay? See Creed, see Nickelback.
Hey.
No, Sean, don't. You can't.
Don't hate on Creed.
Come on, man.
It was
actually pretty good. See,
under the sunlight.
Eddie OC likes to get higher.
It's just true. Eddie Vedder ruined music for a lot of people for a while because suddenly everyone tried to sing like Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
Scott Stapp being one of them. And speaking of, does not seem...
Are you hating on Pearl Jam too?
No. Love Pearl Jam, love Eddie Vedder. But don't be a knockoff. Be authentic, be original. And by the way, Scott Stapp seems like a total ass, if we're being honest, okay? So it's not just, if you like Creed...
Welcome to this place.
That's like terrifyingly accurate. Just write a song, sing like that, you'll make $1 million, man.
Yeah, so... Proof's in the pudding, bud.
So Texter, I apologize
we do have a response.
Is he a Limp Bizkit fan?
He says, not a Limp Bizkit fan, just don't like that bashing on stuff like that.
Well,
doesn't like bashing on that. To hear you and others bashing on stuff like
it's fine. Spence has a show. He can bash on whatever he wants. Okay. Before I let you have the microphone, and then we all have to listen to every damn word you say, over under 25.5 rushing touchdowns for Utah offense this year.
Smash the over.
Okay.
Smash the over.
Do you know how many they had last year?
I'm going to guess 22.
7.
Come on. They had 7 rushing touchdowns?
They had more rushing touchdowns in the 5-game COVID season than they had last year.
Oh, my gosh.
Last in the Big 12 conference.
That's stunning. I would not have guessed it because I guess triple that amount.
Yeah. Isn't that insane?
I think they're running a lot this year. I think we're going to rely on the run game. I think Devin's going to run a lot. Wayshawn's going to run a lot. The other backs are going to run a lot. Give me the over on that.
New Mexico had 37 rushing touchdowns.
And I don't know if you know this, the offensive coordinator for Utah was the offensive coordinator for New Mexico last year.
Who will score more rushing touchdowns, Devin Dampier or the entire running back room combined?
Ooh, good question. I'm going to say Devin.
He had 19 for New Mexico last year.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the team had 18.
I'll say Devin.
Okay.
I think Devin's going to have a big year on the ground. And I'm holding out hope that he can figure out something, a little bit better through the air. I'll smash the over. I'm pretty confident this is going to be a team that controls the line of scrimmage and runs the football a lot this year.
78% of the votes say the running back room combined will outpace Devin Dampier in rushing touchdowns this year. 22.4% say that it'll be Devin, and Spence is in that 22. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for listening all week to the Sean O'Connell Show. Stay tuned for The Drive. We'll do it again on Monday on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.